amongst all the people and communities of the West Midlands, including addressing the significant matters identified in the letter from HMIC. The Acting Chief Constable and I are committed to working together to prevent and tackle crime, bring offenders to justice, promote the rights and welfare of victims, and ensure the safety and security of all of the people and communities of the West Midlands. Thank you very much.
Where's the accountability in retirement, Mr. Foster?
What an absolute cop-out. What an absolute shame and a shambles. The spineless Simon Foster, spineless Simon we'll call him from now on, the Policing and Crime Commissioner, said that Craig Guilford acted with honour. What honour is there in lying to a Home Affairs Select Committee, lying to Parliament, saying twice, for example, just one of the many things he lied about, that AI was not used to create some of the falsified evidence? Well, it was. There's so many things that Craig Guilford did, and none of them was acting with honour. There was no honour in what he did. Spineless Simon comes out, he doesn't take any questions, he says, oh, they've been subject to understandable scrutiny. I'll tell you why there's understandable scrutiny. There's scrutiny because he lied to Parliament. He was brought back to Parliament, as were some of his senior officers, to clarify the matters. The Home Affairs Select Committee didn't believe him. Now what has Craig Guilford done? Has he fallen on his sword? Has he resigned in disgrace? No. He is scuttled off to his retirement. He is going to get a six-figure sum every single year for the rest of his life. He's contributed to that. You have too, as a taxpayer. There is absolutely no confidence at all in West Midlands Police from me right now. Zia Youssef from Reform, their head of policy, has reacted already, says he should not be allowed to retire as West Midlands Police Chief. He should be held accountable for his actions. Craig Guilford should have been dismissed following his abhorrent decision to ban fans from attending the Maccabi Tel Aviv match against Aston Villa this year. What emerged from Mr Guilford's appearance before the Select Committee was extraordinary. He misled the public, he capitulated to violent extremism. His position had already become untenable. We must not allow Islamist thugs or terrorists to believe they can dictate what happens on our streets. I agree with every single word Zia Youssef said. Craig Guilford retires. A gold-plated pension. He doesn't even face the cameras himself. He gets spineless Simon Foster, the Police and Crime Commissioner, to do it. And he says Craig Guilford acted with honour. Acted with honour. What planet are you on, mate? Whatever your thoughts on this, Talk Drive is going to talk about it between now and 7 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note with your thoughts. Less than a minute, please. We'll get as many of those on as we can to the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number, or better still, ring me. I can see the phone calls coming in already, and we'll take those as soon as we can. The number is, of course, 0344 499 1000. Isabel Oakeshott is Talk's international editor. Isabel, that was absolutely shameful.
What a depressing and squalid little dirty deal has been done there. And you didn't have to really read between the lines, did you, to hear what the Police and Crime Commissioner was saying there, which was that if this nasty little deal, which hammers the taxpayer and, as you say, allows the West Midlands Police Chief to get off without even facing the cameras, if that hadn't been done, it was quite clear that he was going to dig in. And, you know, you've got it. Sometimes it's what they don't say. But when the Police and Crime Commissioner there referenced we had to do what was legal and it was all to avoid a big tussle, it's very clear that the police chief was going to just create merry hell as he tried to cling onto his job and extract as much compensation for being booted out as he could. That's what's happened here.
You're absolutely right. I cannot disagree with a single part of that. And Simon Foster has been utterly spineless. He could have just sacked him. He could have just said, I no longer have confidence in him. He's got to go, or indeed suspended him. And what annoys me more than anything else is that there'll be a lot of really good police officers up and down this country, perhaps even listening right now, who would say, hold on a second, I'm a constable, I'm a sergeant, I'm an inspector, whatever. If I did even a tenth of that stuff, if I did a tenth of that, my feet would not have touched the floor. I would have been suspended, I would have been investigated for malfeasance, perhaps even criminally charged in some way. And here we are. This is just the establishment, yet again, stitching this up, protecting themselves, and off Craig Guilford goes, laughing all the way to the bank. Meanwhile, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, and indeed the public, were lied to and gaslit, Isabel. It's disgraceful, and it just shows time and time and time again that the little people have to take responsibility. They are held accountable in so many ways for so many things, but those at the top rarely do.
And that is so kind of corrosive, isn't it, for public trust and people's feeling of kind of fairness and people's feeling of justice and legitimacy. And when you've got that sense that the establishment just constantly protects each other, I think it is very, very toxic. What it leads to is a great deal of bitterness and resentment amongst hardworking people who are struggling to put food on the table, and see these people in fat jobs, you know, swanky jobs with six-figure salaries, who never ever seem to have to pay the price for any of their misjudgments, never mind actual lies.
It's absolutely correct. And I mean, what do you think should happen now? What can happen now? Because the Home Affairs Select Committee could presumably call him again, or their reports coming out. We know we've asked their chairwoman, Dame Karen Bradley, to come on this afternoon. She says she's not going to do that until their committee report comes out, which I suppose is fair enough. But there's really nothing left for us to do in terms of accountability. That he's got off scot-free.
I think that's right. I mean, I'm sure there'll be demands for some sort of raid on his pension or something like that. But we all know how that goes. I mean, you can look at what's happened with Hugh Edwards of the BBC. It's obviously very different circumstances, but he also got a big payoff when, in my view, he should be in prison. And it's just time after time this happens, and it's the taxpayer who loses out.
Yeah, Isabel, thank you for your instant reaction there. That's Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor. Lots of people getting in touch. Elisa in Chelmsford, she's a former police officer, says, I am incandescent at hearing of Craig Guilford's retirement, and even more by Simon Foster's speech. We are being betrayed by the establishment. It is utterly shameful. You wouldn't be able to read out on air the expletives that are in my head right now. Vince says both of them should have been sacked days ago. This is totally unacceptable behaviour. The respect of the police in the UK is going to take years to recover, if it ever does. Tony says yet another senior police officer avoids the consequences by retiring. This is an appalling stain on this country. Sally says, I don't understand how on earth was he able to resign. What an absolute disgrace. Will there be any further investigation into what went on? Can the Police and Crime Commissioner be sacked with a loss of pension? No, Joe, it's too late for that. Joe says, can't he be, the Police and Crime Commissioner be sacked? Well, in theory, but that's an elected position. Dawn in West Midlands, UEFA might look at this farce and decide to use another ground instead of Aston Villa because they don't know how the ground will be policed. That's a very, very good point. And actually the other day we had a senior person in the Jewish community saying that he thought that UEFA should pull out of using those grounds for the Euro 2028. Ian's in London. First call of Drive today. 0344 499 1000 is the number Ian has called. You're very welcome to the programme, Ian. What would you like to say?
Hello, Ian. Peter.
You're Ian. You're Ian. I'm Peter.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. I don't know what day it is.
Well, we're all. I think we're all a bit discombobulated by this absolute farce, Ian. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it is absolutely a joke, and quite truthfully, let's put it bluntly. First of all, that Simon, I can't remember his surname.
Foster.
He's a Corbynist, like in the same respect, anti-Semitic as well. Right.
Well, we don't know if he. I don't personally know if he's anti-Semitic, but certainly he was absolutely appointed and elected under Jeremy Corbyn, and there are many questions over him. In fact, the Times has a number of questions over him today and his links to some of those mosques.
Yeah. Well, quite truthfully, how long before you're going to have a mosque named after Craig Guilford?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think, you know, and we know the other day, for example, we had Craig Guilford, the people who appointed him. One of the people who appointed him was an imam of a local mosque. Now, I'm all for consulting community leaders of all stripes, but he didn't. Yeah. He didn't consult Jewish leaders before the decision. He consulted them after the decision on Maccabi Tel Aviv. I just think it's farcical, Ian. Where's the accountability here?
Well, there isn't. I wouldn't be surprised they'd try and put him for a knighthood. And also with the pension, okay, it's actually going to come out of Jewish people in the area who pay their council tax, paying for his retirement.
Yeah. Yeah, and
right? It's just, if the guy is a coward, right? They're all cowards. They didn't want to do it, and the worst ones of the lot, realistically, if you go through it and you read between the lines, is Keir Starmer and Shabim Mahmood, because they knew about it a week before it actually came out. First of all,
in fairness to Shabana Mahmood, and maybe you don't think I should be defending her, and that's fine. In fairness to her, she did say the other day, like, I've no confidence in this guy, he has to go. That's a big thing for a Home Secretary to do.
Yeah, but that was after the event.
Yeah.
She knew a week before it came out public, and the only reason it came out, that they came out and tried to sort of say, oh, this is bad, was because both her and Starmer were at a Jewish event on, I think it was a Thursday night, when it came out during Kevin's show. That was the night. It was either a Wednesday or a Thursday night. They were both attending a Jewish event, and that's when it came out.
Yeah.
So quite simply, the both of them should hang their heads in shame, but they've got no shame. Sorry.
Well, no, you're right. They do have no shame. Certainly, Craig Guilford has no shame, and Simon Foster has no shame. Ian, thank you. I appreciate that. I think we have Shabana Mahmood now has put out a statement, says the findings of the Chief Inspector were damning. That's the Chief Inspector of Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary. They set out a catalogue of failings that have harmed trust in West Midlands Police. By stepping down, Craig Guilford has done the right thing today. I would like to acknowledge his years of service, and I pay tribute to the work of the officers in West Midlands Police who keep their community safe every day. Today marks a crucial step to rebuilding trust and confidence in the force amongst all the communities they serve. Well, if you are in the Jewish community, for example, if you're in the Jewish community in Birmingham, do you now have trust and confidence? Is this enough that the Chief Constable has retired? He's no longer in that job. But we know that there were other senior officers. This wasn't just him. There's a whole chain of command here. There are a number of people involved with this. There's an Assistant Chief Constable who headed it all. There's a lot to this. Simon is in Northamptonshire, and our next caller on this, Simon, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good afternoon, Peter. I've got two kind of strands to this. The first is just addressing the Crime Commissioner's statement. Something that's really angered me is where he said Craig Guilford's obviously done the right thing, honourable, he's resigned, and it's saved money.
Yeah.
The implication there is because the Crime Commissioner still can start the misconduct proceedings. Even though someone has left, they can look into what has gone on.
That's possible.
Yeah, it is a costly procedure. We had it in the borough where I live. The Chief Constable got sacked. That's when I first met Craig Guilford because he turned up to support him.
Right.
That's when I first thought, yeah, I think you're a bit of a wrong one here.
Okay.
You're coming to support someone.
Do you know what, Simon? This is a really good point. This is a really, really good point. Because there's so many things that public money is spent on, and they say, well, that's just the way things are. And then when it comes to things like this that we actually want to happen, that we want there to be a proper inquiry, proper sanctions, a proper look into this, and proper accountability to say, oh well, we're going to save the public money, and lessons will be learned from this. They often hide behind money. I mean, the amount of money it would take for such an inquiry. Let's say it cost £1 million. Okay, that's money that could be spent elsewhere. It could be spent in a hospital. It could be spent in school, whatever. But actually, given the hundreds of billions of public spending, I think we could probably afford that to get proper answers from what Craig Guilford was up to, why it happened, how it happened. And now I don't think we're going to get that, Simon.
No, I mean, that's my point. It's like saying that if something costs a lot of money, we shouldn't do it. If you're in an organisation, you've got, say, someone stealing, someone bullying, doing something wrong, you have a disciplinary procedure to say, well, that costs money, we're not going to do it. It's effectively giving a green light to anyone in that role to say, if you know how to throw the barriers up and say, I'm going to dig in and I'm going to cost you a lot of money, then you can effectively control the process. But with regards to Craig Guilford himself, it's just the level of, I think self-delusion is the best word, the way he stayed in there and everyone said, oh, his brilliant years of service. Anyone that digs in can actually see this wasn't the first incident. There were other things. As I mentioned,
acted with honour.
Others.
He acted with honour,
No,
Simon, apparently.
Not at all. No, not at all. I mean, this is a man where the fire chief, there was a inquiry into him where he had lied about his qualifications and then committed suicide.
Okay, I don't know the details about that, Simon, and I don't want to.
About 2 years ago.
Okay, I don't want to get into things I don't just know about. But Simon, you had another point to make, I think, as well.
That's all I was saying. That
Okay,
if
sure.
you look at Craig Guilford's background, it's not as brilliant as he makes out.
I'm sure there are many, many journalists who will be doing that right now and digging into that, and I'm sure the Sunday papers will have yet more revelations about this. Simon, thank you. Just to be clear, I just don't know those allegations that Simon's talked about there. He may well be right, but I'm just not familiar with them. Let's go to Chris in Birmingham. Chris, Craig Guilford was the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. Now he isn't. You've got an interim person at the moment. What do you think about what's happened today, Chris?
Hi, Peter. Thanks for taking my call. I'm absolutely appalled that Simon Foster has stood there and thanked Craig Guilford for his service on behalf of people of the West Midlands. I've got Jewish friends. I know a lot. I don't know very many people who have got any time for what Craig Guilford's done. He's been a sneak and dishonest all through, whatever, all through being made the Chief Constable, and I'm just absolutely disgusted that he's been able to retire, and instead of, being made to resign or booted out. Really, I'm so angry. That's the only way I can put it.
Chris, I want to read to you and all our other viewers and listeners the statement from Ayub Khan, who is the local MP, and then I'll get your reaction to it after, Chris. Is that okay if I just read this out for a minute?
Of course.
Okay. This is Ayub Khan, who is the local MP for Aston Villa Stadium. Today marks a dark and shameful chapter for Birmingham and the wider West Midlands. We have witnessed one of the greatest injustices of our time, apparently. A Chief Constable sacrificed not for failure, but for doing his duty. A public servant ousted for protecting the people of Birmingham and refusing to play politics. A police commander removed for judging the Maccabi Tel Aviv Ultras, not on their faith or nationality, but on the storied history of violence, racism and thuggery that showed the wider content of their character. Watching the Home Secretary and our government mobilise in the way they did to defend the honour of Maccabi Tel Aviv has been horrifying. They distorted a decision made on the grounds of public safety and made it about faith while allowing Birmingham's Muslim community to be painted as a mob of Islamist anti-Semitic extremists. They directly undermined their own police force to sanitise the behaviour of individuals that threatened to wreak havoc upon our second city, and they showed us all that the security of British citizens matters less than the reputation of foreign racist thugs. Today, an honourable man of integrity, has been ruthlessly scapegoated, publicly maligned and discarded in favour of appeasing hooligans and the very violence his actions prevented. This was not accountability, it was a witch hunt. Birmingham deserved better, our police deserves better, and the truth will outlive this moment, says Ayub Khan, the local independent pro-Gaza MP. Chris, what do you make of that?
I'm sorry, I would be on all night if I actually said what I thought. It's disgraceful for them to even say that. He hasn't acted with any honour in any way, and as I've said, I'm just an ordinary person, but the way people, not just Jewish people, the way people in Birmingham are treated is really, really bad, and I just can't believe that he's been allowed to put out such a statement. He must be living in cloud cuckoo land, I would think, because I don't want to make light of it, but it's an absolute misery living in Birmingham now, and I'm in my 70s and I've lived in Birmingham all my life.
Do you trust the police in Birmingham, Chris?
No, and nobody's trusted them for a very, very long time. Nobody's trusted them for a very long time, and that, there might as well not be any police about anyway, to be honest, especially in Birmingham, but ordinary Birmingham people like myself who've lived here all their life, I just feel that if I was younger, I would just pack my suitcase and get as far away from here as possible.
And so many people feel that way. Chris, listen, thank you for your call. I appreciate your thoughts and your reaction to that ludicrous statement from Ayub Khan. He is not living on this planet. Let's hear a voice note from Mike.
Spineless news, in my opinion, and this just exposes the rot that is growing within this country. And I'm sorry, this is what I'm talking about. We need a hard-facing truth. And if that, from the Police Crime Commissioner, isn't enough, I don't know what is. The fact of the matter is, we have got complacent, we've got comfortable, and we've become tolerant with the intolerable. And I hope the next government that come in, God forbid we get rid of the useless government we've got now, the next government that come in does an absolute clean sweep in this country and really sends home the message of what Britain really is about. Because, my God, have we lost our touch.
Mike, thank you for that. Russell says, how disgusting Craig Guilford is allowed to retire. If the Home Secretary says she can't sack the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, surely she now must sack the Policing and Crime Commissioner of the West Midlands, says Russell in Derbyshire. I don't think she can do that either. That's a publicly elected position. Neil says, Cardi P, I am sick of hearing he policed for all communities. There's one community, police it without favour. Now the Policing and Crime Commissioner should resign, says Neil. Peter Blexley is standing by. We're going to get his reaction. I don't know about you, but I want to hear that. Stay with us here on Talk Drive.
You can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I haven't got time. Tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about this.
And actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mary in County Down says Guilford is retiring, a disgraceful, cowardly end to a disgraceful, cowardly affair. He should have been sacked for misconduct, his pension contributions handed back to him, no full police pension. This way he glides out comfortably. In no time at all, he'll be on the consultancy circuit. His outrageous dishonesty and mishandling of the Islamist threat to Israeli and Jewish fans will be but a ripple on his CV. I want to just play you again the disgraceful 2 minutes of spineless Simon Foster, the Police and Crime Commissioner. This is what he said about the coward that is Craig Guilford, not facing the cameras, not facing any more public scrutiny, heading off into the sunset with his massive police pension. We'll play this again and then we'll get Peter Blexley's reaction. I, for one, want to hear that. Here's spineless Simon.
Constable Craig Guilford has today retired from West Midlands Police with immediate effect. In doing so, he has acted with honour and in the best interests of West Midlands Police and our region. I welcome his decision. I'm pleased this outcome has been reached having regard to due process and the law. That has prevented what might otherwise have been a complex procedure that would have caused significant distraction, impact and cost to West Midlands Police and the wider West Midlands. It was important this matter was resolved in a balanced, calm, fair, measured and respectful manner. The Chief Constable's retirement follows the decision of the Birmingham City Council Safety Advisory Group, based on the recommendation of West Midlands Police, to ban away fans from attending the Europa League football match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv on the 6th of November 2025. West Midlands Police have been subjected to understandable, intense and significant oversight and scrutiny as a consequence of events that led to the recommendation it made to the Safety Advisory Group. That has included the letter from His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary that was published as recently as Wednesday the 14th of January. That set out significant preliminary concerns and shortcomings in relation to the preparation and planning by West Midlands Police. It is important that I acknowledge the many positive achievements and contributions that Craig Guildford has made to policing within the West Midlands during the course of his 3 years tenure as Chief Constable. As Police and Crime Commissioner, and on behalf of the people of the West Midlands, I thank him for his service. I have today appointed Deputy Chief Constable Scott Green as the Acting Chief Constable. We have already met to discuss the actions that the force must take to rebuild trust and confidence amongst all the people and communities of the West Midlands, including addressing the significant matters identified in the letter from HMIC. The Acting Chief Constable and I are committed to working together to prevent and tackle crime, bring offenders to justice, promote the rights and welfare of victims, and ensure the safety and security of all of the people and communities of the West Midlands. Thank you very much.
He acted with honour and in the best interests of the people of the West Midlands. It avoided a complex, significant distraction, which would have had a big impact and a cost. Well, we can't have anything that's complex. We can't have anything that's costly. We can't have any proper investigation. So it's really best, isn't it, that Craig Guildford has gone off into the sun, a man who Ayub Khan MP says was an honourable man of integrity. Peter Blexley is our crime commentator and a former Metropolitan Police detective. Peter, what do you think?
Spineless, cowardly drivel from the Police and Crime Commissioner, Simon Foster. And I don't say what I'm going to say now lightly. And whilst the circumstances were very, very different, from what I've seen, what I've heard and what I've read in recent days, former Chief Constable Craig Guildford and Police and Crime Commissioner Simon Foster of the West Midlands area have done as much damage to the trust, confidence and respect of policing in Britain as Wayne Couzens and David Carrick combined.
Do you really think so, Peter? That's a very strong thing to say.
And it's the truth. I've been monitoring this situation frequently throughout the week. People are utterly appalled at the way that Guildford and Foster have behaved. Craig Guildford was the national lead for ethics and professionalism in policing. He lied. He bowed down to a violent Muslim mob who wanted to attack Jewish football supporters. And then not only did he bow down to them, he lied to a parliamentary committee about it. It is absolutely unbelievable. The damage is incalculable and the reputation of British policing may never recover.
What do you think people like you in your role previously, detective constables, sergeants, people, bobbies on the beat, people investigating crime rather than sitting in nice warm offices making decisions like Craig Guildford was, what do you think the actual bobbies on the beat in West Midlands Police are thinking now? What impact will it have on them, do you think, when you have their leader, their most senior police officer in the region allowed to lie and get away with it, and off he goes with his gold-plated pension? In fact, he retired previously and came back to protect his pension.
Yes, he did. If a constable, a sergeant, an inspector, an officer of any rank other than Chief Constable had lied, like Guildford did, They would have been disciplined, put on a gross misconduct panel and summarily sacked. Guildford was not. He was allowed to retire for the second time. And as you pointed out, the first time he retired was entirely inspired by greed, so that he could collect his pension, then come back whilst not only receiving his huge police pension, but getting a chief constable's salary on top of that. Greed. It is absolutely astonishing. Any hard-working police officer who signed up to protect the members of the public, if approached by a boss and said, we've got a gang here, no matter of their colour, creed, race, ethnicity, religion, whatsoever, we've got a gang here who are going to arm themselves and attack other football supporters. Any police officer with any gumption would have said, great, let's go out. Let's put them under surveillance. Let's do intelligence gathering. Let's get the evidence. Let's arrest them. Let's put the case to the CPS and hopefully get them charged and in front of a court. Guildford did nothing of the sort.
I want to ask you as well, Peter, about another story that we spotted the other day about Avon and Somerset Police. This is a meeting they're having. We know Avon and Somerset Police have been in my radar for quite a while over the shameful decision not to arrest Pascal Robinson Foster from Maccabi Tel Aviv. Now they're having a community meeting which you cannot get into, which you're not welcome at unless you're black. What do you think of that?
It's discriminatory and it shouldn't happen. But this kind of nonsense that pollutes policing the length and breadth of the country is living on borrowed time. The public are simply not going to stand for this. And how will the public be able to react to that? With their pencil in the ballot box the next time either council elections, if they're not cancelled, or a general election comes round. The Tories used to be the party of law and order. Well, that's laughable after their last period of government. This government is utterly abysmal in just about every regard, as we know.
Okay.
The public will vote for politicians that vow to put law and order very, very, very high up on the agenda, to suitably fund our criminal justice system, to protect our police and encourage them, thereby having them suitably rewarded in pay and conditions, to go out onto the streets, to keep Britain safe, to rescue the streets away from the criminals and make Britain the great country it once was.
I just want to read you what Avon and Somerset Police have told us, Peter, and get your reaction. We routinely hold meetings targeted at communities experiencing specific issues to discuss what is affecting them. These sessions help us gain clearer insights into the communities we serve, support more informed decision making and ultimately build trust and better outcomes for everyone. Working with black, capitalised, communities in this way gives people a safe and dedicated space to engage with us. It also helps us to address the 20% trust and confidence gap that exists between black communities and the police, which affects our ability to keep all communities safe. While these conversations are focused on the black community because of the specific challenges and disparities they face, no one is excluded from engaging with us. I mean, that's just not true. Rather, this targeted approach ensures we're listening meaningfully to those most affected so we can improve our service for everyone. What do you make of that, Peter?
An effective police service that treats everyone equally should engage with two communities and two communities only. Those who are the victims of crime, of course, very, very important, and those who commit crime, regardless of skin colour, race, religion, faith, creed. That's what policing needs to do. And until it can grasp that concept, this drivel, this nonsense, this divide, this division, and this absolute nonsense will sadly continue.
Peter Blexley, thank you very much. Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police Detective. It's been welcomed by the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. Lots of people getting in touch, including Andy from Bridgeend, who says, "Good afternoon, Peter. That statement about Craig Guildford is a disgrace and was put together days ago. He hasn't fallen on a sword. He has fallen into a bed of feathers. Shameful, appalling, disgraceful behaviour. The reputation of British police surely can't get any lower." Colette in Redditch says, "The fact Craig Guildford has been allowed to retire following this disgraceful matter tells you everything you need to know about the shameful police force. It should be put into special measures and get the rot out, including Snivelling Simon, the Police and Crime Commissioner." Snivelling Simon, Spineless Simon, whatever you want to call him. Stephen says, "Ayub Khan isn't reading the room, is he? The man is shameless. He's also just factually wrong on so many points." Mark says Craig Guilford is obviously trying to protect his pension by retiring. It's plainly obvious. What do you think, Peter? Mark, I think you're absolutely right. Let's go to Michael. He's also in Birmingham. Michael, what do you make of this?
You had a caller on, a lady from Birmingham, and the fear in her voice was palpable, and I can empathise completely with her, because what this has done, this has drawn back the curtain on not just the West Midlands Police, but Birmingham as a whole, and every public sector organisation. I have the feeling, and a lot of people do here, that something's going on. We don't know what. You can't quantify it.
This is the question, Michael. I think you're absolutely right to say that. The question that I asked, I don't know if you saw my interview with Gabriel Pogrund, who was the reporter who exposed all this, or a lot of this. I said to him, why? Why are they doing this? Is it capitulating to Islamists? What is it? What is the reason for this?
Well,
and we need to know that. We know the what, but we don't know the why, Michael. We need to know what was inside Craig Guilford's head when he said, right, I'm going to ban those people from coming, those fans, and then I'm going to lie to Parliament about it. What was going through his head and why?
Absolutely. There's something behind it. It's not, I mean, you know, you've been a SPAD. I know what a SPAD is. You can talk about a procedural mistake, just a bad decision.
Yes.
Okay. But it's the thinking and what the influences were, and how much do they pervade not only West Midlands Police, but the Police Commissioner and every other public sector service within this region.
And as always, Michael, it's the cover-up. Listen, thank you for your call, Michael. Got to go to a break now, but we'll talk about the political matters of the day. We'll get to Robert Jenrick. Hard to believe it was only this time yesterday. Rachel Cunliffe standing by from the New Statesman. I'll ask her as well about Craig Guilford and get more of your comments on Damon and Wigan just before the break. Says, when are the British people going to be treated with the respect they deserve? The government thank Craig Guilford for his service upon his retirement. It's absolutely disgusting. How many racist decisions has this chief officer made? How many more police officers are going to make bad decisions and then retire on a massive pension? When will people in top positions who make biased decisions, or when are they going to face punishment for the decisions they make, says Damon. Damon, can't disagree with the sentiment there. Thank you for it. Lots more messages, calls, texts, tweets and voice notes coming your way. Stay with us here on Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Phil in Essex says, it's all well and good the Chief Constable resigning, but what about, well, he's retired, but what about all the others that were involved in this huge deception? It wasn't all about one man. This is a whole team of police officers that deceived Parliament and the general public, therefore they should all go. Phil, I totally agree with you. This was not just Craig Guilford acting by himself. There were lots of people. There was an Assistant Chief Constable, for example, who gave evidence to Parliament and was recalled as well. Margaret says, what honour. He is laughing all the way to the bank. Massive pension. Why? What a whitewash that statement was. He has lied and yet rewarded with a gold-plated pension. That is disgraceful, says Margaret in Birmingham. Big issue politically as well. The Home Secretary has talked about this and said that she's glad that he's finally gone. Let's speak to Rachel Cunliffe, who is Associate Political Editor of the New Statesman. Rachel, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Huge political story as well. We'll talk about Robert Jenrick in a second, but now Craig Guilford has finally gone. Will Shabana Mahmood be breathing something of a sigh of relief?
It's interesting, the comments that we've got from the Home Secretary on his resignation. She said she welcomed it. She said him standing down was the right thing to do. That is not the line being taken by others in Parliament. You've had the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, suggest that he shouldn't have been allowed to resign. He should have been sacked, essentially, and it was a cop-out. And a similar statement as well from Zia Youssef of Reform. I think it's extraordinary that he clung on after the Home Secretary announced in the House of Commons on Wednesday that she had lost confidence in him, and after that extraordinary report.
And that's the first time in 20 years that a Home Secretary has said that a Chief Constable doesn't have the confidence of whoever the Home Secretary was at the time. I mean, that is a very, very significant thing for her to say and do, isn't it?
It's very significant, and not only that, she pointed out that because she, as Home Secretary, did not have the power to sack him herself because of changes made in 2011, she was going to change the law essentially to give future Home Secretaries that power back because of how significant it was. So for her to now say that she welcomes his resignation, which, as I know you've been discussing, entitles him to his pension, entitles him to stand down with dignity, that is a little bit of a change in language, perhaps, but I imagine she's just relieved that he's gone one way or another, even though the ramifications of this will continue.
What do you think the Home Affairs Select Committee does now? Its chairwoman, Dame Karen Bradley, we invited her on today. She says she may well come on at a future time. I've interviewed her many times. And full disclosure, I worked for her for a very, very brief period of time as her special advisor, but she is now the chairwoman of the Home Affairs Select Committee. She won't come on at the moment because they haven't produced their report yet, but we know basically what's going to be in it. I mean, could, in theory, they recall him again to the Home Affairs Select Committee? Is that something that they could do?
The committees can call in anyone that they want. I think that there are bigger questions here about West Midlands Police Force that go beyond a single individual, and serious questions for Simon Foster as well, who in his statement about Guilford's resignation used some, again, really quite surprising, extraordinary language. Made a point of pointing out all the wonderful things that he'd done over his career, and said that he was pleased that he'd resigned because otherwise it would have been a very complex process and it could have been a distraction. And you look at the...
And expensive as well, as if somehow a few £100,000 they couldn't find it, or this would be a dreadful thing. It's like people who say don't sue the NHS when there's medical malpractice. If a police officer beats you up, don't sue the police because that might cost money and time and effort. I mean, if investigation needs to be done, it needs to be done. And it really concerns me that a police and crime commissioner is essentially saying, oh, we shouldn't do an investigation because it might be a bit complex and it might be a bit expensive. I mean, that's quite worrying even as a general attitude to me, Rachel.
It is worrying, and the ethical questions around all of this, again, go far beyond individuals. You have to ask yourself about a culture that led to the report being written in the first place, and then the really quite astonishing misleading of MPs. So I think serious questions to answer here, and real concerns about the communities at stake in those areas and whether they feel they have any trust in the police at this point.
Let's talk about Robert Jenrick, again dominating the headlines today for a second day. Westminster reeling from all of this, and of course more detail coming out about it and many people reacting to it. What's your take on the last 24 hours, Rachel? A really astonishing 24 hours in UK politics, if you ask me.
Well, it's been a rollercoaster, hasn't it? I think it is actually been played quite well by Kemi Badenoch. I think her decisive action yesterday morning has really taken the wind out of Robert Jenrick's sails, the momentum. I don't believe that Jenrick and Nigel Farage were planning to announce his defection at that press conference, sort of hastily scrambled together yesterday afternoon. Nonetheless, Jenrick's trying to make the most of it. He's given an interview. He has claimed that his decision is about uniting the right, which is a big question among both Reform and Conservative supporters. Which of the two parties is going to be the dominant one to take on Labour in the next election. Something else that came out of that interview that I found interesting was that he said he essentially made the decision to defect to Reform over Christmas. That actually directly contradicts what both he and Nigel Farage said yesterday, was that he hadn't made the decision until Kemi Badenoch kicked him out.
And what he told the journalist less than a week ago, that he was never going to defect. Let's hear a little bit of that interview with the BBC from Robert Jenrick speaking to them.
If you want to get rid of this Labour government and have a strong, reforming government to fix the country, there's frankly only one way to do that. There's only one way to do that. That is to vote for Nigel, to rally behind him and reform. If you don't, you'll have Starmer, or God forbid, Starmer in coalition with Zach Polanski and Ed Davey, or whatever madness might follow. And our country will go down a very dark path, decline, and I just cannot allow that to happen. It pains me to see Britain in decline. I'm not going to allow that to happen. That's why I have chosen, and I think millions of other people will do in the years ahead, to put long-standing party allegiance to one side, in my case, to put personal ambition to one side, and to put the country first.
I don't know about you, Rachel, but I'm really glad in 2015 we didn't have a coalition of chaos, because things were so incredibly stable after that. What do you make of what Robert Jenrick said there, Rachel?
Well, he's making the best of a bad situation, I think, given that he wasn't able to resign with dignity and take a parade, an exodus of fellow Tory MPs with him. I think that his questions about the future of the Conservative Party, his criticisms of it, that is a worry for Kemi Badenoch and for the Tory Party at the moment, to have somebody so entwined, so enmeshed with it. I mean, he joined the party at 16, be so scathing and so damning, not just of the party, but of specific individuals. Those comments yesterday about the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel, and their record in government, they are pretty damning. So it's a burn all bridges approach, and I think there are actually concerns as well that it may have shredded Robert Jenrick's own credibility, dare I say it. There was a YouGov poll out a few hours ago that showed that his own personal popularity has dropped since his decision. So defections have consequences. Who knew?
They certainly do. And tell us just a little bit about this under-16 social media ban. What do you think the government's likely to do on this? Because Keir Starmer said he's looking at what Australia did when he banned under-16s. But what options are they looking at? What do you think they'll end up doing?
So the context for this is that the House of Lords is considering a bill already going through Parliament on next week, and is predicted probably to pass an amendment suggesting that we should have a social media ban for under-16s like Australia. That's something that the Conservatives have been pushing for, and actually a number of Labour MPs. Wes Streeting seemed quite warm towards it. Andy Burnham, not a Labour MP, but key Labour figure, has also supported it. So you might now be in a situation where the government could be asking its MPs to vote against a measure that is quite popular and that a lot of its MPs agree with. And given the lack of political capital that it has at the moment, that would be a very awkward position for them to be in. Hence, we're getting rumours of a U-turn. We're getting rumours that the government might try and put forward its own amendment towards this. Like, the fact is that a social media ban for under-16s is popular. We like banning things in this country. We also quite like protecting children. The only thing we like more than that is protecting animals. The question is there actually any evidence from Australia that this is going to be successful? The evidence isn't there yet. It's just about vibes, and it's about the weakness of Starmer's government, that he can see a possible rebellion coming, so may attempt to preempt it by U-turning early.
Very, very interesting analysis there, Rachel. Thank you. Rachel Cunliffe, Associate Political Editor of the New Statesman. We'll talk to her again soon, I'm sure. Lots of people getting in touch about Spineless Simon and Cowardly Craig. Andy in Thatcham says, what a spineless weasel Simon Foster is. What they have done today is cause more disconnection between the police and establishment and the little people who always pay in the end. Simon Foster should stand down in disgrace. Linda in Deal says, so Craig Guilford retires with his pension. The whole lot of them make me sick. It sums up the establishment, especially those on the left. Conniving cowards, the lot of them. Trevor in Harrow says, good afternoon, Peter. The disgrace that the West Midlands Chief Constable was allowed to retire almost confirms corruption in plain sight, and it seems there isn't anything we're legally allowed to do about it. Colin says, how can we be made to abide by the law? Yet this just says these people are above it. It just sends out the wrong message. What a farce. Mac in Glasgow says, it's an absolute disgrace. Craig Guilford gets to resign and keep his pension when it has been proven that he lied to the government, failed to get the backing of Shabana Mahmood. He should be facing criminal action, in Mac's opinion. Why can't the government stop this? Does the government not govern the Association of Chief Police Officers? What he did was gross misconduct, and if you're an ordinary policeman, they would have been sacked with no pension. He acted with the utmost of dishonour and acted in his own interest. What a coward that he couldn't even face the public, says Mac in Glasgow. We'll have plenty more on that in just a second. And just before we go to the break, I just want to talk about my friend Ian, who is my cat's uncle. Jack's uncle Ian is not doing too well at the moment. He's getting some treatment for quite a serious illness. And I just want to say, Ian, we're with you. We have solidarity with you. And thank you for listening and watching the programme and being such a huge supporter of me personally, of Jack, my cat, and a great friend. And I wish you all the very, very best with your course of treatment. We'll take more calls very, very soon, in just a few minutes, on Craig Guilford and his retirement. Stay with us.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you everyone who's been in touch. Just looking at Twitter there, quite a number of comments. Graham Collins says, what on earth is Ayub Khan thinking? This is the MP for the local area in Birmingham who says, today an honourable man of integrity has been ruthlessly scapegoated. Ayub, what planet are you on, mate? What on earth is Ayub Khan thinking, says Graham Collins. He clearly believes his own rhetoric and exists in some parallel universe. What buffoons voted for this revolting man who's allowed to peddle his extreme views and sit in our parliament? I'm sure Ayub Khan would deny that his views are extremist. Graham Allen says, scandal that he is allowed to do this. He should have been sacked and stripped of his pension rights, Craig Guilford, not only as punishment for his gross misconduct, but pour encourager les autres, and there are plenty of autres. Foster should go now, says Lee. Ken says, hi Peter, what in the name of all that is holy have I just listened to? Hashtag spineless Simon Foster, speaking about a fellow officer, hashtag cowardly Craig Guilford. Well, Simon Foster's not an officer, he's a police and crime commissioner, but I know what you mean. Simon Foster, speaking about Craig Guilford, who's recently had a statement of no confidence by our Home Secretary. Sounds as if he's describing a hero who's caught a baby in his arms that fell from the 14th floor. No wonder it took 2 days for him to go. They spent it writing that complete nonsense. Our establishment is rammed with people riding a gravy train. And London Oil Trader says, can we not accept the statement that Craig Guilford left with honour? This has to be revoked. And Angie says, as an ex-Brummie, this really puts my city in a very poor light. Too right, Peter, verbalising his absolute disgust at this joke of a statement. I had a little rant at the start of the programme, which my colleagues very kindly clipped up, and you can find on my Twitter at Peter Cardwell and indeed at talkTV. Ashley's in London. Ashley, what do you think of this?
Oh, Peter, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, Ayub Khan kind of sums up the whole problem that we have here with this, and that is that it's his view, his influence as part of the influence with this chief inspector. And what people don't, I've seen lots of things online today, people going, oh, he shouldn't have been sacked, it's the Zionists, I mean, just to put this into perspective, right, we're talking about someone who is being influenced. It doesn't matter whether it's us Jews or whether it's Christians or people of all different faiths and colours, right? He has been nobbled by these people to do their doing. And it could be, this time might be Jews, but it might be something else next time that they don't like. Might not like Christmas tree going up. So
exactly, Ashley. And this is the point. The point is that we've got to stand up for Jewish people in our community, A, because it's the right thing to do, B, because they are victims of horrendous anti-Semitism, and C, because there is this prevailing counter-narrative that people like Ayub Khan put out, and, you know, Jews today, Christians tomorrow, you know, Sikhs the next day, whoever it is, there's this view, this Islamist view, that is very, very worrying. And the Islamists were the threat to the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, not the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans themselves. I'm not saying for a second there weren't some yobs and thugs and horrible people and racist, yes, in Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. But what we do know is that the intelligence was falsified and Parliament was lied to, and then he retires. This is just an absolute grade A 24-carat scandal.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, really, because ultimately, this MP is, you know, I appreciate from a legal point of view, you might have an opinion on this, but his views are Islamist, right? You know, that is where he stands, and the problem we have with all this is that it's their view, and we're not entitled to a view. And like you're saying, it might be that some of the Maccabi fans may be troublemakers, but we get that in every football game throughout the country. Now, if they really genuinely thought that there was a risk from the locals, which quite clearly now there was, against the Maccabi fans, then maybe the decision, instead of bottling it, he should have turned around and said the game needs to be relocated elsewhere. And it's an embarrassment for him because he can't police it, right? And maybe you shouldn't be in charge because of that. But ultimately, he had lots of choices to make, but the choices that he made were to withhold information from the committee, which was very clear, and that's that he told the committee that, oh, well, they didn't ask the right question, basically.
Yeah. Well, we know that was nonsense. The committee knows that was nonsense, and they're going to go through them for a shortcut in their report as well. Ashley, good to talk to you. Just got to bring in Elizabeth and Chorley. 0344 499 1000 is the number that she has phoned. Elizabeth, you're very welcome to the programme. What's your view on this?
Hello. I think the whole debacle is a disgrace. The Crime Commissioner is a liar, as is the Chief Constable.
How do you think the Police and Crime Commissioner lied? How do you think he lied?
He lied because he's in cahoots with the Chief Constable.
Well, we don't. Well, yeah, you could argue that certainly. He's certainly covering for him anyway. He called him an honourable man.
He's not an honourable man. How can you be an honourable man when you've had to go online to fake an AI football match and lie about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really basic and very, very fundamental point in all of this, Elizabeth.
I mean, these people are getting paid loads of money and they can't even get the story straight.
Or basic facts right.
Correct.
Elizabeth.
The fact is, in Birmingham, in Manchester, in London, in Rotherham, in Luton, in the whole of West Yorkshire and some of Lancashire, the Muslim Islamists are now smelling blood, and they know it, and they're sitting in Parliament. And I'm not a racist. I have many Muslim friends.
OK, Elizabeth, listen, thank you for your thoughts today. That's Elizabeth in Chorley. And let's hear this voice note now from Steve on Craig Guildford.
It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. But it just goes to show what is wrong with this country. The entire establishment and civil service are corrupt to the back teeth. This man should have been held completely accountable for what he did. There should have even been criminal charges against him for what he did. And what's he been allowed to do? Retire on a pension with no investigation at all. It stinks. Absolutely stinks. Great show, mate. Keep up the good work.
Steve, thank you for that. Alistair in Oxfordshire says, Chief Constable yesterday, Chief Comfortable today. So that's Alistair in Oxfordshire. Martin Brooks from Romford in Essex says, great show. The Craig Guildford situation is disgraceful. All this does is encourage others in similar positions to make exactly the same decisions, lie through their teeth and get away with it. Another case of broken Britain. That's Martin there. Thank you for that. And Sean says, typical Labour, let kids vote for the government on their 16th birthday, but they're banned from seeing any of the political content on social media the day before. This country is a bad joke, says Sean. And Penny in Essex says, Kemi is only sacked Jen Jenrick because of the threat of him getting the leadership eventually. No other reason. Well, interestingly, you should mention that, Penny. We're going to speak to Alex Wilson from Reform UK. He will be with us in just a minute or two. We'll put all those points to him. And Robert Jenrick, sensationally, around this time yesterday, kicked out of the Conservative Party in the morning, without a party for some of the day, and then joining Reform UK in the afternoon. Nigel Farage welcoming him in London. The fallout continues. Jenrick says the right must unite. That's Jacob Rees-Mogg says there should be some sort of electoral pact as well. I wonder what you think of that. We'll cover all these stories in the next hour and right up to 7 o'clock here on Talk Drive. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk Drive. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Thank you so much. Loads of calls, text, tweets and voice notes coming in. Keep them coming. We'll get to as many of them as we possibly can between now and 7 o'clock on the absolute scandal of Craig Guilford scurrying off for his gold-plated pension, aided and abetted by the spineless Simon Foster, the Police and Crime Commissioner in West Midlands Police, who said he has acted with honour. If you believe he's acted with honour, I would very much like to talk to you, because I think that is absolute nonsense. We also have Ayub Khan, who's the MP for the area, saying this is a witch hunt, saying that he's been stitched up. An honourable man of integrity in Craig Guilford. He lied to Parliament, Ayub. He lied to Parliament. We're going to be talking to a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee a little bit later on what he thinks. There's so much to get into. Alex Wilson from Reform UK will be with us in a second. We'll talk to him as well about Robert Jenrick. Hard to believe it was only yesterday that Robert Jenrick defected to Reform UK. Lots of Conservatives very, very angry about that. Kemi Badenoch says, glad he's not my problem anymore. But what can Robert Jenrick actually bring to Reform UK, especially as his personal popularity is gone, or will Reform UK be saying this is all marvellous, this is great, he's a former cabinet minister. Some people as well saying, well, actually, hold on, he might dilute the Reform brand a bit. Maybe they have too many Tories. We'll talk, or ex-former Tories. We'll talk to Alex Wilson about that in just a second. We've got the sport this hour as well, and we'll talk about nurses in that transgender row suffering harassment from the NHS Trust. That is the ruling of the tribunal. We'll have someone who will be for that and someone who will be against it. Lots to discuss this hour. I want your thoughts too on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, to the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message to the main number, or you can ring me on the main number, which is of course 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 7 o'clock here on Talk Drive. So many people getting in touch. David in Beaconsfield says perhaps if they can prosecute veterans after 50 years, they'll be able to prosecute a public servant like Guildford. If so, maybe he will spend an uncomfortable retirement. Great programme as usual. Thank you, David. Graham in Bushy says, I presume Craig Guildford will be up for a gong on the King's Birthday Honours or New Year's Honours list for services to policing, which will be proposed by spineless Simon Foster and Ayub Khan. Well, let's hope not. He shouldn't get anything at all. Let's remind ourselves of what the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner Simon Foster said. So this is not the guy who's gone. The guy who's gone is Craig Guildford, the Chief Constable. He did not even bother facing the cameras. Instead, the Police and Crime Commissioner Simon Foster said this.
The Chief Constable, Craig Guildford, has today retired from West Midlands Police with immediate effect. In doing so, he has acted with honour and in the best interests of West Midlands Police and our region. I welcome his decision. I'm pleased this outcome has been reached having regard to due process and the law. That has prevented what might otherwise have been a complex procedure that would have caused significant distraction, impact and cost to West Midlands Police and the wider West Midlands. It was important this matter was resolved in a balanced, calm, fair, measured and respectful manner. The Chief Constable's retirement follows the decision of the Birmingham City Council Safety Advisory Group, based on the recommendation of West Midlands Police, to ban away fans from attending the Europa League football match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv on the 6th of November 2025. West Midlands Police have been subjected to understandable, intense and significant oversight and scrutiny as a consequence of events that led to the recommendation it made to the Safety Advisory Group. That has included the letter from His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary that was published as recently as Wednesday the 14th of January. That set out significant preliminary concerns and shortcomings in relation to the preparation and planning by West Midlands Police. It is important that I acknowledge the many positive achievements and contributions that Craig Guildford has made to policing within the West Midlands during the course of his 3 years tenure as Chief Constable. As Police and Crime Commissioner and on behalf of the people of the West Midlands, I thank him for his service. I have today appointed Deputy Chief Constable Scott Green as the Acting Chief Constable. We have already met to discuss the actions that the force must take to rebuild trust and confidence amongst all the people and communities of the West Midlands, including addressing the significant matters identified in the letter from HMIC. The Acting Chief Constable and I are committed to working together to prevent and tackle crime, bring offenders to justice, promote the rights and welfare of victims, and ensure the safety and security of all of the people and communities of the West Midlands. Thank you very much.
Well, Craig Guildford himself, scuttling off for his huge gold-plated pension, has put out a statement. He says the recent political and media frenzy around his position has been detrimental to the work of his force. Do you know what I think might also be detrimental to the work of West Midlands Police? Lying to Parliament. Lying to Parliament. and then refusing to resign when the Home Secretary says you've got to go. The Home Secretary says she no longer has confidence in you, and you take 2 days to resign. Seriously, mate. Let's read out this absolute nonsense that's come from Craig Guilford. I've come to the conclusion, this is the former Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, I've come to the conclusion that the political and media frenzy around myself and my position has become detrimental to all the great work undertaken by my officers and staff in serving communities, plural, across the West Midlands. I've carefully considered my position and concluded that retirement is in the best interest of the organisation, myself and my family. It has been the honour of my career serving as the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. With the force's dedicated and hard-working workforce, together we have turned this force around. I therefore want to take this opportunity to recognise the outstanding level of service that this force provides to the public. I know this will continue thanks to all of the officers, staff and volunteers who work for West Midlands Police, who all strive to keep the public safe. I would also like to thank all of the communities, plural, of the West Midlands for your support. I'm not sure you've got the support of the Jewish community, Craig. I think you might have slightly got that one wrong. I will greatly miss the incredible people I have the privilege to meet, work with and serve across the region. This guy does not get it. This guy is not, he is disconnected from the matrix. He is not on planet Earth. The political and media frenzy around myself and my position. First of all, it's me and my position, or around my position and I. So let's get the grammar right first of all. But aside from that, apparently it's become detrimental to all the great work undertaken by my officers and staff. Yeah, it's the political and media frenzy. It's the politicians' fault. It's the media's fault. Maybe it's your fault, Craig. Maybe if you hadn't lied to Parliament, maybe if you hadn't made stuff up, maybe if you hadn't got it wrong time and time and time again. Maybe if you just told the truth at the start. Maybe if you consulted the Jewish community at the start rather than after the decision was made. Maybe if you weren't in hock to perhaps one of the people who appointed you, an imam of a local mosque who was in support of you and who was on the panel that appointed you. Really? Do you think maybe you perhaps took his views and his mosque's views more seriously than perhaps those who didn't appoint you, Craig? Just a thought. Honestly, this guy doesn't get it. I'm glad he's gone, but he should have been suspended, investigated and sacked. Let's get the view of Alex Wilson, the Reform UK London Assembly member. We know that Zia Youssef, who is the head of policy, has already said that he shouldn't be allowed to retire as West Midlands Police Chief. Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
Completely agree with Zia. And this whole situation has been an absolute disgrace from start to finish. Banning visiting fans from going to Villa Park to watch their team play in European competition. That in itself is a disgrace for whatever reason that was done in the first place. We then found out that the so-called evidence to back up that decision was fabricated, and then he lied to Parliament about the fabrication of that evidence. It's an absolute disgrace from start to finish. He shouldn't be allowed to retire with his massive public sector gold-plated pension. He should have been sacked on the spot. I mean, this is the one real power that police and crime commissioners, until they're abolished before the next round of elections, it's the one real power that they have, is to sack the chief constable when they've done something absolutely catastrophically wrong. This is exactly the kind of situation where that power should have been exercised. And you're right in your intro. The local politicians are in hock to certain elements of the community, and as a result of that, they're not prepared to do their job and keep everybody safe. That's what they're paid to do. That's what they're elected to do, and they have utterly, utterly failed. Only yesterday, different context, but in the London Assembly, where I sit on the Police and Crime Committee, one of the guests that was being asked questions about other things, commented that it's virtually impossible to sack senior or middle leadership in the police for being rubbish at their job and rubbish at fighting crime. And this whole episode has just absolutely proved that in the West Midlands. It's the same in London. It's the same across the country. It's a disgrace. What
should the Home Secretary be allowed to do? Now, she is bringing in this power back in to be able to sack chief constables. We know that under a Reform UK government, you've got a big plan for law and order. How would this have been handled differently if Nigel Farage was Prime Minister?
Well, at the moment, the Home Secretary doesn't have the power to sack chief constables, apart from does have the power to sack the Met Commissioner, because the arrangements are different there. So this is a power that rests with the Police and Crime Commissioner. The Home Secretary eventually noted that she had lost the confidence in this chap, but ultimately it's a decision for the local Police and Crime Commissioner to make. Now, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is a Birmingham MP. She will obviously have a working relationship with the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner. So what she should have done is lent very, very heavily on him to say, come on, do your job, sack this man, let's get some trust back in the police.
There does need to be trust back in the police. There needs to be trust back in politics as well. Robert Jenrick has defected to your party now, to Reform UK, not to Jeremy Corbyn's. To your, as in your, Alex, the party that belongs to you and you belong to. Let's just have a quick look at what Robert Jenrick has been telling the BBC about this. We heard a lot from him yesterday. We took that press conference in its entirety, but this is what he's been saying to the BBC today.
If you want to get rid of this Labour government and have a strong reforming government to fix the country, there's frankly only one way to do that. There's only one way to do that. That is to vote for Nigel, to rally behind him and reform. If you don't, you have Starmer, or God forbid, Starmer in coalition with Zach Polanski and Ed Davey or whatever madness might follow, and our country will go down a very dark path, decline, and I just cannot allow that to happen. It pains me to see Britain in decline. I'm not going to allow that to happen. That's why I have chosen, and I think millions of other people will do in the years ahead, to put long-standing party allegiance to one side, in my case, to put personal ambition to one side, and to put the country first.
Robert Jenrick speaking to the BBC. Alex, that was a bit of a jaw-dropper yesterday. Robert Jenrick, of course, former Cabinet Minister, but of course he presided over some of what Reform UK say was chaos, say was a dreadful government. He himself has said he regrets and he's ashamed of some of the things the Conservatives have done. Is he really an asset to you?
Oh, hugely. Yes, he was part of that Conservative government. But remember, he resigned from his position as Immigration Minister because he couldn't get the support of the rest of the front bench, the Cabinet and the leadership to deliver what needed to be done. So you need to take that into account whenever you're talking about his role in the last government. But overall, he is a huge asset to us. He brings really strong positive qualities, his charisma, his profile, his knowledge, his experience, but above all, his passion for our country. Yeah, he's joined us now and he's taken a big, bold step. I know what it's like to move parties. I did that 5 years ago. And he's done that not because he wants to save his career, but because he wants to play a role in saving our country. And he's extremely welcome within Reform as we together set out on our mission to do that.
It's interesting, YouGov has done a snap poll on this, and in the aftermath of his defection, Robert Jenrick's net favourability rating has fallen to its lowest level since they started measuring it in 2024. His favourables are 11%, down 2, unfavourables up 9. 41% of people say they have an unfavourable view of him, so a net minus 30. That's just one poll, of course. It's a snap poll. People will take a little while to settle in and so on. But one thing, you've defected yourself, as you know, as you've said, and as we know, but you've got something like 23 former MPs, 2 of them sitting, Danny Kruger and Robert Jenrick. Is there a worry, perhaps not from you, but maybe from others in Reform UK, that Reform UK are just becoming continuity Conservatives?
Well, that's precisely why yesterday, as well as welcoming Robert into the party, Nigel has given a very, very clear deadline of the 7th of May. If people want to join us before then, we'll talk to them. We'll probably reject as many, if not more, than we accept. And that counts at all levels, whether that's MPs, whether it's ex-MPs, whether it's councillors. That process needs to be gone through very carefully. We want people who will bring something really positive to the table. We're not a retirement home for failed Tories, far from it. But the Tories themselves won't exist as a national party after the 7th of May. That's why that deadline's in place. They need to make up their mind rather than be rats fleeing a sinking ship. We are here to save this country, to change the whole political trajectory of this country. We welcome people who've got genuine experience, knowledge and skills, and Robert is one of those. But fundamentally, we are also very much in the business of promoting our own homegrown talent. We've got crucial elections coming up in Scotland, Wales, all the London boroughs, and many other councils elsewhere in the country, those that haven't been cancelled by then. And the vast, vast majority of our candidates that will be standing in those are people who haven't joined from another party, but they've joined as members of the public who are just so thoroughly fed up with the way that our country is being run at all levels and want to have their opportunity to make a difference. That's what we're about, building that broad platform. We're winning council by-elections week after week. Half of the seats we've gained in council by-elections since the general election have come from Labour. And only last night we gained a seat from the Lib Dems, and the Conservatives, their vote share fell by 23.7%. The Conservatives are dead. They are finished. We are going to finish them off. We are going to replace them as the principal party on the right of centre in British politics. If people want to get on board, that's great. Otherwise, get out of the way. Let us do the job.
Were you disappointed not to be chosen as the candidate for Mayor of London for Reform UK?
Not at all. I think Layla's a fantastic candidate. She's got a really strong backstory, her professional background as a criminal prosecutor. When crime and safety are the key issues that we'll be taking into those campaigns, she's an obvious candidate for us. She's brilliant on the media. I'm already working very, very closely with her. Looking forward to the next 2.5 years as we battle to get rid of Sadiq Khan.
Will you be standing to be an MP in the next election, Alex?
I expect so. I'll certainly be applying. Hopefully I'll pass vetting, and then we'll see what happens from there.
OK, Alex, thank you. Alex Wilson, who is London Assembly Member for Reform UK. Hughie is in Liverpool and wants to talk about Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. Hughie, you're very welcome to the programme. I understand you were a policeman yourself, is that correct?
Yes, I was in Merseyside from 75 to 2005, and I was very lucky to have a Chief Constable, Sir Ken Oxford, who'd actually served in the RAF in World War II, and he had medals that meant something on his chest.
They don't make them like that anymore. What do you make of Craig Guilford?
Well, I've seen his medals, and none of them are worth a carrot. There's one there that's the Police Long Service and Good Conduct Medal. Everybody gets that. There's a few others that are, well, they're all... they all mean nothing. It's a row of medals that he's proud of.
When you hear the Police and Crime Commissioner say he's done an honourable thing, he has served with honour, when you hear the local MP say that he has been the victim of a witch hunt and is an honourable man of integrity, what does that make you think, Hughie, as someone who served in our police force for 40 years?
Well, I retired, obviously, in 2005.
Yeah.
But, having looked back in the recent crop, I don't think any of them have seen an angry man. That's the problem. They sit in offices, they make these political decisions, and we're left with a terrible situation in this country now. Really terrible. What can you say?
Okay.
You know, also, I'm drawn back to Hillsborough, where we had exactly the same, the Chief Constable there, who once the sort of hooks were coming into him, he did the honourable thing and retired. They all go with a huge pension to somewhere warm, and they're left to sort of stew.
And here we are many years later with a law, the Hillsborough law, to make sure that that never happens again. Hughie, listen, thank you for your contribution, and thanks for your service to Merseyside Police as well and the country. Sarah has been in touch on Craig Guilford. Let's hear this voice note.
I don't have the words. I really don't have the words. This man, Craig Guilford, he needed to have been sacked over a week ago. He needed to be sacked with no pension, no privileges, no nothing. He lied. He absolutely lied to everyone and then he made up stories in order to cover his backside. And he hasn't even got the nerve to come and make his retirement speech himself. And as for that other bloke, Simon Foster, is it? Apparently he's, up to dodgy stuff as well. So perhaps he ought to go as well. I'm sorry, but this man is a disgrace.
OK, there's no suggestion that Simon Foster's up to anything dodgy, anything illegal or criminal, certainly. What we do know is that Simon Foster is supporting and has supported Craig Guilford, and we just want to disassociate ourselves from the thought that Simon Foster would be in any way dodgy. Certainly, that's not something that we believe at this station. That is clearly the view of Sarah. There's no evidence to support that, but certainly he's done something spineless today. He has said that Craig Guilford is an honourable man. I think that is absolute bunkum. We'll talk more about this, and we'll talk about another big story today about nurses in a transgender row suffered harassment from an NHS trust. Those are the findings of a tribunal. We'll talk to two people, one who agrees, one who disagrees. That's coming next here on Talk.
This is the Political Asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m, right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Betty says your callers are right. He was holding out for a peerage, or even worse, was probably tipped for stacking the House of Lords before he got caught. Simi says, I'm a West Ham fan. I'm livid they used my team for their lies. That's Simi in Wanstead. Richie and Radcliffe on Trent said, what about the ethics and integrity of the MP, Ayub Khan, who continues his poisonous rhetoric? And Mike in Milton Keynes says, regarding Guildford, it's all about greed, greed, greed. Foster should be sacked immediately. We'll return to that story, but I want to talk now about Darlington Memorial Hospital. There's a big tribunal that found that nurses suffered harassment from their NHS trust with the effect of violating the dignity of the claimants and creating a hostile, intimidating, humiliating and degrading environment for them. This was because their colleague Rose Henderson, born a man but identifies as a woman, was using changing rooms. There were all sorts of allegations made, some of them upheld, some of them not. The tribunal said there was indirect sex discrimination as it concluded by permitting a trans woman to use the female changing room. The trust was in breach of health and safety laws and had infringed the claimant's right to respect for private life under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Rose Henderson had not personally harassed or victimised the claimants, the tribunal found, but one of the nurses told the tribunal that Rose repeatedly asked her whether or not she was getting changed yet, and this triggered a panic attack due to prior trauma. We remember, of course, in December last year, the Scottish nurse Sandy Peggy only won part of a tribunal case against the NHS in Fife following a transgender colleague's use of a female changing room. So this is a big victory for these women. Also, we're in a situation where we're still waiting for Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, also the Equalities Minister, to put out the guidance after the very straightforward verdict of the Supreme Court on men and women. Let's speak to Matthew Hulbert, the political commentator and Liberal Democrat activist, and Fiona McEnena, who is Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters. Fiona, perhaps I could get your reaction to this first.
Something very obvious, which is that if you're at work and you're required to change into a uniform, which these nurses are, then it's reasonable to do that in a single-sex facility. And if there is a man who says he is a woman and he doesn't want to use the men's changing rooms, then it's also reasonable to give him some provision that addresses his needs, but not at the expense of all the women. And thankfully, the judge saw that was a reasonable conclusion. And what's more, it's the law. It's what the Equality Act says. Everyone is protected from discrimination and harassment. He said that the trust had acted unlawfully in giving Rose Henderson permission to use the women's changing rooms. So this is a very welcome common sense result.
Matthew?
Well, good evening, Peter, and to your guest, and of course to your viewers and listeners. Well, I mean, what we have a situation here is where we have people have competing rights, and everyone's rights need to be respected, and sometimes that means that rights clash, and the answer then is to sit down and have a sensible conversation of finding some kind of common ground that suits everybody, and that is what I would hope will begin to happen in public institutions given the ruling of the Supreme Court. But your other guest is right about this in the sense that everyone has rights, and that includes trans women.
Does Rose have a right to change in a changing facility that has women who were women at birth in it, Matthew?
Well, I mean, what I would say is that this is someone who identifies as a woman and
biologically male,
and therefore was using the women's changing rooms. You know, some people seem to have a massive issue over what toilets people use. I think most people are not out to do anything that is wrong, and who just want to be able to go about their lives. And I chaired an LGBT plus charity here in Leicestershire for many years. We work with lots of trans people who faced persecution every day of their lives. Persecution trying to get on a bus.
Okay.
Persecution trying to go to the shops.
I don't want to persecute anybody who's trans. Right. I don't want to persecute anybody who has any sort of trauma or difficulty or questioning their identity or has transitioned or whatever. I don't want to make their lives more difficult at all in any way. But the majority of people who are men and women, who are not trans men or trans women, have not in any way transitioned or identify, or however you want to call it, most of them will not want to be in a changing room with someone who was born with the opposite sex and now identifies as their sex. Matthew, you accept that? Should there be a separate changing room for people like Rose Henderson?
I accept that these are clearly very contentious issues that people feel very strongly about.
So what should happen, Matthew? What should happen?
But I equally feel strongly that trans people have rights. And as I say, the answer is not to go to 100 in terms of your anger on these issues. The answer is to sit down and have a sensible dialogue.
Okay. What's happening right now is that we're not going to 100. None of the three of us is going to 100 at all.
Yep.
I'm simply asking you. Unfortunately, it is for want of a better phrase, it is a binary argument that either you have transgender people in a changing room with, in this case, women, or you don't. So what is your solution to this, Matthew?
Well, I think the overwhelming number of trans women can use female toilets or changing rooms without any issue at all. And what I really protest at, and I do protest at this, is one case being used to extrapolate that this represents all trans people.
In what way have we done that? We haven't done that, Matthew. We haven't done that. I want to bring Fiona back in, because we have not done that at all at any stage in the last 6 or 7 minutes. Fiona, what's your reaction to what Matthew's saying?
Yeah, I would say two simple things. The first one is that the judge made very clear this is not about competing rights. He was explicit about that. He said everyone has the right to protection from discrimination, but that does not mean for 1 second that anyone can identify into the facilities of the other sex. So that's the first point. The second point is no one is accusing anyone of anything. I wouldn't want either of you two men in a women's changing room with me, and it's not because I think you would attack me. It's because I want privacy in a single-sex facility. That's what most people want, and you cannot
these are not
let
men. They're
anyone
women.
male.
No, they're not women. They're not women.
But they are men. There's no getting away from that.
Hold on, Matthew, can we hold on. One at a time. Yep. Fiona first, then Matthew. Fiona.
If a trans-identifying man does not want to be reminded that he is male, then he should not go into the women's changing rooms. No one's going to run around shouting at him. But really, when he intrudes on women's privacy, then we do have to speak the truth. That's when we have to say, I'm sorry, you don't belong in here.
Matthew?
I mean, I would say that calling a trans woman a trans-identifying man is in of itself discriminatory, and so I have an issue with that. But as I say, I think the overwhelming number of people will just want to use facilities. But
the point is, Matthew, that may well be the case. I don't think it is, but it may well be the case. But the fact is, in this particular tribunal, and with the law that we now have from the Supreme Court, it is clear that there should be different, well, it's clear to me, it may not be clear to everybody, there should be some form of different facility. I'm not saying people shouldn't have changing rooms. I'm not saying that someone who is transitioning necessarily has to go into a male changing room, but perhaps there should be different changing rooms, a third set of changing rooms, although some people have an issue with that. So again, Matthew, and you haven't answered this question. I'll come to Fiona and ask her exactly the same question in a minute. What is your solution to this?
You see, I don't think these things are binary. I think if I can put it this way, they are non-binary, because we aren't all just male or female. I think gender is increasingly a spectrum, and some people may not like that, but these people exist, and their rights and dignity should be protected. And so society has got to deal with this situation? Maybe the answer is, in institutions like hospitals, etc., maybe a third changing room is an answer. I would personally have no problem with that, but I think a lot of trans women would say, we are transitioning into, or have transitioned into being women, therefore we are women, therefore we should be able to use the female changing rooms.
Fiona?
They might say that, but they'd be wrong, because the Supreme Court has rightly confirmed what everybody knows, which is that you can't change sex. You can do whatever you like with how you present, how you look. You can demand pronouns from other people, but it doesn't change your sex. And women have a right, when they walk into a changing room that says it's a women's changing room, not to find anyone male in there. So there are plenty of ways to solve this without destroying the privacy and dignity of women, but letting someone like Rose Henderson into the women's changing rooms is not one of them. And that's what the judge said. He said, no, you can't do that. It's discrimination. I think this matters more to women than men. Maybe that's why it's so much clearer to me than it is to Matthew. But actually, it matters to a lot of men too that they have privacy from the other sex. It's really not a lot to ask.
Well, also it matters to me that women are safe and feel safe. Fiona, I just wonder, just finally, there are a lot of,
to me too, by the way.
There are a lot of people who, on businesses, for example, they might say, look, we have a male changing room, or alternatively, let's talk about toilets. We have a male toilet, female toilet, disabled toilet. Lots of people say, oh, just go into the disabled toilet. Well, there are lots of disabled people who might disagree with that. There may be people who say, look, we're trying to run a business here. We don't necessarily have a kind of fourth room for another facility and so on. What would you say to them, Fiona? What's reasonable when perhaps the space isn't there, it's perhaps more expense? What do you think is a reasonable thing within that argument, Fiona?
Well, my starting point is everyone knows what sex they are, and no one should be harassed or subject to abuse if they use the toilets of their sex. So what this really comes down to is that some men who identify as women are afraid that other men will be abusive towards them. And I guess that's where this all needs to start and end, doesn't it? Is we shouldn't tolerate male violence, whether it's directed against other men or women. And at the end of the day, there is no reason why it's women's problem if men are going to be hostile to gender non-conforming men. So we want our privacy.
Final word from Matthew, please.
Well, I mean, I'd be interested to know if Fiona thinks, therefore, given what she said, that trans men, so these are people that started off biologically as women, would be welcome in women's changing rooms.
I think it depends on whether they look male, because if someone appears male, for example, if they've taken testosterone and they have a beard and a deep voice, I think that's going to be intimidating to some women. And I think that women, because we tend not to have the same level of entitlement as men, I think that women who've transitioned are much less likely to impose themselves where they know they'll make other people uncomfortable.
We need to go to a break, Matthew, but just a quick reply to what Fiona said there.
I go back to what I said at the start. Sometimes you do get clashing rights. We need to be sensible. We need to sit down. We need to find practical solutions that ensure that everyone feels safe and protected.
And I've asked you on a number of occasions what that practical solution is, and you haven't told me. Matthew, thank you. Matthew Hulbert, political commentator and Lib Dem activist, and Fiona McEnena, who is Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters. Thank you both for your time and for your contribution. Lots more to come. We're going to talk in just a second to Mark Leahy about Iran and what Trump might do. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch, and Peter from Bromley has sent a very nice thing saying it's a privilege to listen to these shows. Well, it's a privilege to present them, and it's a privilege to hear from all our viewers and listeners and our guests as well. Lots of thoughts on Craig Guilford we'll come back to, but I want to speak to Mark Leahy now, who is former spokesman for NATO and former defence correspondent for the BBC. Mark, great to talk to you. Just tell us what exactly is happening with Iran right now, because it seemed, certainly for the last 2 or 3 days, that there might be an attack imminent from the United States, but that just hasn't happened. My reading of it, and I could be totally wrong, and you're quite literally the expert, my reading of the situation is that the protests have perhaps slightly calmed down. Just give us your reading of what's happening.
Well, I think the protests have basically been driven off the streets. They've been suppressed with extreme violence. And I think what has happened with regard to President Trump's response is that he's kind of backed away. It's quite clear that the nations and the regions don't want him to do it. But also, I suspect his military advisors have said, okay, there's nothing we can do that will change the regime. So we can bomb them, we can kill them, but at the end of the day, the Iranian regime will still be in charge. So I think that probably he is looking and thinking, I'm not sure this is such a good idea. But he's talked himself into a corner, so he may well still feel that he's got to do something. But at the moment, I think what is the issue for him? But you're certainly right. The protests have not so much died down as they've killed the protesters in many respects and driven them off the streets.
And of course, that will put so many off. There's so many people who are very worried about this. You've covered this for a long time, and there have been so many uprisings. Is this one still different? Do you still expect something might happen and it might not just go away completely?
I think this one is different. Its intensity, the violence, the widespread nature of it. But the fundamentals for regime change still aren't there. You need two things. You need a coherent resistance, which is, if you like, a government in waiting that can take over. And you need the regime to be hollowed out so that the army or the police forces won't fight. So if you go right back to 1979, in the end, the Shah's regime collapsed then because the army wouldn't fight for him. At the moment, what we've seen is quite clearly the regime has quite enough people who will fight for it. And yet, if they did fall, who would take over? So the key elements of what you need for regime change aren't there, even though I think the nature of what's been going on is more intense and more violent.
What about Pahlavi, the son of the Shah? He is saying that he could come back, that it would be perhaps an interim figure. That seems to be downplayed by some. There are some who disagree with that, don't think that's a good idea. What's your reading of that situation?
Well, I doubt he's got the coherent support. Where is the government in waiting? If he came back, who's going to rally to him? Are there troops that are going to lay down their arms or switch over and fight for him? So I think it has become clear he's got some support, perhaps more than people realize. But I don't see the evidence at the moment that he's got enough support to actually mobilize a coherent resistance that could actually take over. So I think he's, if you like, burnished his credentials a bit, but not to the degree that one could see him as the replacement for the regime.
Mark, you're a former NATO spokesman. No doubt you will have been following the President's thoughts on Greenland very, very closely. Do you think that NATO could be at risk if there is some movement, particularly if it is not entirely peaceful when it comes to Greenland from the United States?
If the Americans invaded or forcibly annexed without the agreement of the Greenlanders or Denmark, I think the crisis for NATO would be extreme. It could well survive in a hollowed out form, but effectively when its leading member attacks another leading member, then I think that the credibility of NATO is fatally damaged. So I think if the president does go ahead with this in some form, then I think NATO's credibility is critically damaged. And I think you may end up there that there are going to be people in his own military saying this is not sensible. There will be people telling him we don't need to do this because they don't. And there will be, I think, more resistance. We've seen a bipartisan group of senators in Denmark today. So I think the people saying don't do this are building up a little bit, and their rationale for doing it, other than to scratch an itch, just simply doesn't exist.
Mark, thank you. That's Mark Lacey there. He's a former spokesman for NATO, former defence correspondent at the BBC. Really interesting hearing from him there. We'll get the sport in just a second as well. We'll take many more of your calls. If you want to ring in, 0344 499 1000, whether it's on Craig Guilford, whether it's on the trans issue, whatever you want to talk about. Michael says, I don't want a trans woman in my male changing room. Another person says, Peter, I think there should be a by-election if a politician decides to change parties. If it was held on the 7th of May, I think Generic and Reform would win easily and put more pressure on the Conservatives and Labour, says Derek. And Mark says Craig Guilford is reported to have done the right thing by standing down and retiring. Wrong, he should have been fired and lose his pension. Lots of very, very strong views on all of this. We will make sure that as many calls, tweets, texts and voice notes make it onto the air between now and 7, and we'll get this, a little bit of sport, as I say, next. Stay with us here on Talk.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mick has been in touch and says, I'm disgusted that the West Midlands Police Chief Constable has been allowed to retire. Once again, a public servant has left a job with full benefits and not been held to account. This just confirms what most people in this country believe, that there is one rule for them and another for the rest of us. He should have been charged with misconduct in a public office and stripped of his gold-plated pension. Now he has been allowed to walk off with no accountability, no consequences. Also, there won't be any inquiry now into the role of Islamists and their role in all of this. So yet again, just like the rape gangs, the cover-up begins. We'll return to that. A lot of people very angry. I'm one of them. I think Craig Guilford is a disgrace and he should not have been allowed to retire. Let's talk about the sport.
Sports news from The Sun.
Well, the transfer window is well and truly upon us, and Mike Anstead is with us from the sports desk of The Sun. Tell us about Man City swooping on an England international, Mike.
Yeah, massive move today. So Man City have essentially got Mark Gay in the bag. So Crystal Palace defender, England international, one of the best defenders in the Premier League, wanted by Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Chelsea, City, I'm sure countless other clubs. City, who desperately need a defender because Guardiola's broken his leg and out for the remainder of the season, so they made their move. So they've done a 20 million deal that includes, will have a load of bonuses on top, but Gay's basically going to have a medical the next couple of days and join them, and it's a massive boost for Pep Guardiola. So he signed Semenyo from Bournemouth, who's been flying out the blocks already, scored in his first 2 games, and now he's got Mark Gay coming in. So if I was Arsenal at the top of the table, I'd be a little bit worried right now.
Tell us about Crystal Palace as well. Their manager, Oliver Glasner, has some news. What's he said?
Yeah, what Dave Crystal Palace? So Mark Gay's out the door. So his last match will be the infamous Macclesfield game that I think you called Macclesfield were going to win that one. But
Macclesfield have got to win their next one as well, against, isn't it, Brentford?
Yeah, got another big game against Brentford. But yeah, I mean,
a lot of love for them probably on Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. But no, terrible day if you're a Crystal Palace fan. You're seeing your captain, Talisman Malik, defender, out the door, and Oliver Glasner, who we know there's been a lot of doubts about him over the last few months. He's basically admitted, my contract's up at the end of the season, that's me gone. Okay. So he's had a sit-down dinner with Steve Parish, the owner, in October. He said he told him then that he's going, so it's a huge blow. And it'd be interesting now, will Manchester United, who've got Michael Carrick making his debut tomorrow, will they have a look at Glasner? Let's see.
And just let's talk about Man United and Carrick, a war of words amongst former players.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's almost inevitable if you're the Man United manager, you're going to have Roy Keane, Gary Neville and who else lining up to have a bit of a pop at you.
Roy Keane generally has some opinions, I find.
Roy Keane's fairly upset about most things in life, but, you know, it's all good fun. But Carrick's sort of not had a huge go back at them, but he said, look, I've got a thick skin, I can take all this. Roy Keane had a couple of words earlier this week of, you know, potentially making a suggestion that Michael Carrick's wife might make the team talk and, you know, all these sort of things. So, but he says, look, I can handle this. I know what comes to the job. I know, you know, the likes of Keane Neville are going to come to me. He's obviously worked with some of these, played with some of them. But, you know, he's got a big job on his hands, Michael Carrick. Essentially, he's going to be there to the end of the season. There's still half the season left, and he kicks off against Man City tomorrow, who, as we know, have got Semenyo flying as well. So good luck to him.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. Head of content at the sports desk of The Sun. You can, of course, see their full coverage in the paper tomorrow and indeed on Sunday and Monday as well, with all the sports news and, of course, online at thesun.co.uk/sport. Time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star intercontinental hotel and £2,500 worth of spending money. Wouldn't that be nice? Plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch, including Keith, who says, how can anyone have confidence in our policing system in the UK? Joe in Norfolk says, how is the MP Ayub Khan allowed to stay as an MP when we know he was backing locals set to threaten visiting football fans and told police lies? Well, we don't know that's necessarily the case. Certainly, he was saying that the locals would be fine. He can't be held responsible for all that they do, and we want to be very careful to stay on the right side of the law, certainly when it comes to Ayub Khan. Why is it in this country that Joe continues that when you do something bad, you never face any consequences? Ordinary people step out of line and we get the book thrown at us. Matthew in Italy says, I filed a complaint against West Midlands Police accusing them of racism in the Maccabi Tel Aviv case the very same day that Commissioner appeared in Parliament stating that they made a mistake. I received a formal letter from West Midlands Police reinforcing the lie about the threats from Israeli fans. He should have been fired. Let's speak to Darren in London, who has some thoughts on this. Darren, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Peter. A long-time listener. Really good to speak to you.
You too, Darren.
I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted about what's gone on. But you know what? I can't help but think it's a good thing. because what it's done, it's lifted the stone.
Yeah, it's true, actually. And the problem is it's been horrendous for the people of Birmingham. The anti-Semitism that's happened in the last 2 years particularly, although of course it's been around for centuries, has been particularly bad. But as you say, it does lift that rock. It does show the true colours of various people, and then at least we know what the problem properly is.
Absolutely. I just hope there's an inquiry. I hope there's, or even a documentary, or this continues, and I hope it just doesn't lie down and just fade away.
Yeah.
And there needs to be momentum, definitely.
Do you know what? The journalism of Gabriel Pogrund, we spoke to him the other day, that guy from the Sunday Times, he's done so much in this, and there's so much more to this. I spoke to a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee, actually privately, who told me there is so much more in this. And hopefully, Darren, you and I will get our wish to just know the full extent of this, to know exactly what happened. And I'm not sure him going is the last police officer going. Certainly not. It shouldn't be the last police officer who goes, Darren.
No, keep talking about it, Peter.
Thank you, Darren. Much appreciated. Thank you for your support. Bob in Ludlow is with us now. He's given us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Bob, you're a former copper?
I am. I did 10 and a half years back in the 70s and 80s, Peter.
Okay.
I really am not surprised by the way things have gone, and I think a lot of other ex-coppers won't be either, because this all, to my mind, stems back to when they started this fast-tracking system back in the mid-60s, I think it was. And it's utterly ridiculous that you employ a so-called university graduate on a fast-track basis through a police force.
Can I just ask you, Bob, did you ever give evidence in court as a police officer?
Yes.
Okay, so if you had ever even thought about not telling the truth in some way, or massaging a detail, or getting something wrong, I would imagine someone like you, Bob, and many, many other people who were in your position would have done every single thing to get all the facts in front of you. You're going to have some clever lawyer who's going to ask you some difficult question or try and make you lose your rag or whatever. But the point is, you tell the truth, and whatever that truth is. And if you're going to Parliament, it's basically the same thing. Lying to Parliament, lying to a court, they're really, really serious things. If you had, at any point, done anything, even 10% of what Craig Guilford had done, you'd have been suspended, Bob.
No, you'd been out of a job back in my day. I mean, the police these days are no longer the disciplined service that it used to be.
Yes.
I mean, I was in the army. The majority of ex-forces, well, the majority of the police that were on the streets back in the day were ex-forces.
Yeah.
They had the discipline, the self-confidence, the self-ability to go out there and do the job.
And that's just missing. That's just missing, Bob. It's missing, and it worries me that that's missing. But even just, I mean, any police officer who can't tell right from wrong, I don't want them anywhere near the police. And here we have a chief constable who apparently doesn't know right from wrong. There's no apology in the statement. There's no, do you know what? I'm dreadfully sorry for getting it wrong. I lied. I'm sorry. It's a fair cop. He's not a fair cop. He's quite the opposite.
He's not the first one, Peter. There have been several over the last 20, 30 years in similar sorts of circumstances, maybe not as dramatic, and obviously social media and that has evolved through this time, which is bringing these things more to the fore. But I think in reality, a lot of people, a lot of these sort of people look back to the era of Tony Blair and think, oh, well, if he can produce a dodgy dossier that takes us to war, and not go to jail for it, etc., then why the hell shouldn't I?
And even further back to Richard Nixon and Watergate and all those reasons why people don't trust institutions, it goes right back to that, goes right back to fairness. Bob, really, really good points. Thank you for them. Mike says West Midlands Crime Commissioner's speech was incredibly divisive. Instead of using the term the people of the West Midlands, he kept reiterating the communities of the West Midlands, which is divisive language. This kind of language indicates division and separation, which leads to a two-tier or even three-tier justice system within the area, says Mike. Well, listen, thank you for that. Lots of opinions coming into the building. We're going to speak to a current member of the Home Affairs Select Committee. One of the MPs on that committee is coming in just a few minutes. You're going to want to hear it. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much for your company here on Talk Drive. The big story today is that Craig Guilford, who is, or was until earlier this afternoon, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, is gone, but he's retired and keeps his pension. We'll speak to a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee in just a second about what they do next. We'll also speak to a councillor in the area in Birmingham. We'll talk about net zero, slowing growth, that's what the Bank of England is saying, and what's in the sun tomorrow. There are lots of people who want to get on the air as well. If you're one of them, I want to speak to you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. You can follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please. We'll play out as many of those as we can. 0344 499 1000. That's the number for calls. That's the number for WhatsApp text messages. Lots of people in touch. We'll get as many of their comments as well as our guest comments on air between now and 7 o'clock. So stay with us here on Talk Drive. So many people getting in touch. Graham says Craig Guilford retired in 2024 to save his pension. He has now done the same to protect his pension again. Is there anything the Home Office Select Committee or the Home Secretary can do to make sure he is never employed or used by any police force in the country ever again? Graham, that is that exact point I will put to a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee in just a second, but I just want to remind ourselves of the statement not from Craig Guilford. He scurried away into the dark recesses of his retirement. Instead, it was Simon Foster, the absolutely spineless Police and Crime Commissioner, who spoke and gave the information about Craig Guilford going. This is what Simon Foster, the Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands, said earlier on this afternoon.
The Chief Constable, Craig Guilford, has today retired from West Midlands Police with immediate effect. In doing so, he has acted with honour and in the best interests of West Midlands Police and our region. I welcome his decision. I'm pleased this outcome has been reached having regard to due process and the law. That has prevented what might otherwise have been a complex procedure that would have caused significant distraction, impact and cost to West Midlands Police and the wider West Midlands. It was important this matter was resolved in a balanced, calm, fair, measured and respectful manner. The Chief Constable's retirement follows the decision of the Birmingham City Council Safety Advisory Group, based on the recommendation of West Midlands Police, to ban away fans from attending the Europa League football match between Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv on the 6th of November 2025. West Midlands Police have been subjected to understandable, intense and significant oversight and scrutiny as a consequence of events that led to the recommendation it made to the Safety Advisory Group. That has included the letter from His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary that was published as recently as Wednesday the 14th of January. That set out significant preliminary concerns and shortcomings in relation to the preparation and planning by West Midlands Police. It is important that I acknowledge the many positive achievements and contributions that Craig Guilford has made to policing within the West Midlands during the course of his 3 years tenure as Chief Constable. As Police and Crime Commissioner and on behalf of the people of the West Midlands, I thank him for his service. I have today appointed Deputy Chief Constable Scott Green as the Acting Chief Constable. We have already met to discuss the actions that the force must take to rebuild trust and confidence amongst all the people and communities of the West Midlands, including addressing the significant matters identified in the letter from HMIC. The Acting Chief Constable and I are committed to working together to prevent and tackle crime, bring offenders to justice, promote the rights and welfare of victims, and ensure the safety and security of all of the people and communities of the West Midlands. Thank you very much.
That was Simon Foster there. Let's speak to Dr. Peter Prinsley MP. He's a Labour MP for Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket, but also a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee. Peter, we said we'd speak again soon. I didn't realise it would be about 24 hours later. Thank you for joining me again. I appreciate this. When you hear that he served with honour, when you hear that Craig Guilford says the political and media frenzy around myself and my position has become detrimental, when you hear Ayub Khan saying that Craig Guilford is an honourable man of integrity, there's a lot to unpack. What do you think of what has happened today?
Well, you know, I'm not surprised. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it took so long for him to leave, because it was, you know, on the day when the Home Secretary in Parliament said that she'd no longer got confidence in the Chief Constable, I had expected that he would leave that day, and I think that had been the expectation of most people in Parliament. And frankly, if he hadn't left, he's left of his own volition, but the other expectation was that the Police and Crime Commissioner, who's the only person who has the authority to remove him, so it seems, would have in fact done so.
Wouldn't that have been a better way to do this? Because there are so many people, including many of my viewers and listeners, who are incredibly angry that Craig Guilford has been allowed to retire, to take his full pension, and, you know, presumably there will not be a misconduct inquiry now because he has retired.
Well, I'm not sure about the details of how that all works, but I don't necessarily think that there won't be a misconduct inquiry. I mean, I think that there are obviously other police officers who were also engaged with this that we interviewed in the Select Committee. And, you know, the question of whether having retired gives you immunity from an investigation, I don't really know. It obviously has financial consequences for the person who has retired. But, you know, to some extent, this looked to me like this was the responsibility of the Police and Crime Commissioner to act on the day that the Home Secretary said something.
So has Simon Foster failed here?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, he's a separately elected official who you know, must take his own counsel. But you might, I mean, I don't think I'm the only person who was surprised that he didn't act on the day that the Home Secretary spoke in Parliament.
Is that a failure of him in office?
Very difficult to say. Very difficult to say. But
why is it difficult to say?
Well, some might. I think what the Police and Crime Commissioner was probably doing was he was awaiting, you know, his own investigations and possibly waiting for the conclusion of the investigation of the Select Committee. But I think that the Select Committee's inquiry is a matter entirely separate. And, you know, having considered the matter, what I would have done if I had been the Police and Crime Commissioner is I would have acted. But, you know, I'm not the Police and Crime Commissioner.
One point that one of our viewers and listeners made is there anything that your committee can do or the Home Secretary can do to make sure that Craig Guilford is never employed or used by any police force in the country ever again? I mean, I think it's unlikely he would be employed by any other police force, but what are the powers in regard to his future, if any, that now rest with the Home Secretary or with your committee?
Well, I'm sure none of them rest with our committee. That I can be quite confident of that.
Yep.
I actually don't know whether the Home Secretary has separate individual powers to forbid the employment of an individual police officer.
So within that, what do you think should happen now? Because your inquiry report, of course, is coming out from the Home Affairs Select Committee. I mean, you've looked into this in great detail over a long period of time. As you correctly pointed out there, it wasn't just Craig Guilford you interviewed. There were a number of other officers as well. So what would you like to happen? What would be appropriate?
Well, I think that the Select Committee's report must take its course. I believe there are further bits of evidence which are being gathered, including things like the transcripts of the Safety Advisory Group. Because, you know, a question which has really been at the back of everybody's mind, and was the question that I directly asked the Home Secretary in the House of Commons the other day, was if it became apparent that there was some political interference or political pressure put on the Safety Advisory Group, which then resulted in them making a decision which then required the police to come up with some evidence, what would be the consequences if political interference was indeed revealed? I mean, as I said to you, I think when I spoke the other day, there was another curious episode when the Safety Advisory Group of Birmingham City Council had advised that a Diwali celebration some weeks earlier should not go ahead on safety grounds. Now, you have to ask yourself, what could possibly be unsafe about a Diwali celebration on the streets of Birmingham? So I think that there is, in the minds of many people, a suspicion that has been some political pressure put on the Safety Advisory Group, which does indeed have some elected councillors on it. It's unusual for a Safety Advisory Group to have elected councillors. Mostly these groups consists of people who have actually safety expertise. So, for instance, you might have the chief ambulance officer and the chief fire officer, and people who are experts on building safety. But to have people who are elected councillors determining whether or not something is safe or not begs the question of what are the qualifications of these individuals who sit on these safety advisory groups to advise on safety.
Speaking of qualifications and people qualified to make decisions, we know that there was an imam from a local mosque who was on the committee and on the selection committee that appointed Craig Guilford Chief Constable. Should community representatives be on the committee, the selection committee, the interview panel that appoints the next West Midlands Police Chief Constable?
Well, I don't know. I think that, definitely consulting widely within the community is a very good idea. But I do understand that the appointment of a chief constable is entirely within the discretion of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So although there may be an appointments committee, the decision to appoint somebody is the decision of the Police and Crime Commissioner, who, as I said, is the elected official.
Do you believe policing in this country in general, given what has happened with West Midlands Police, is too politicised?
I don't really think that policing is politicised, but what has happened here does undermine somewhat the confidence of people in the fact that it should not be politicised. I mean, the police really are there to, protect the public and to enforce the law, and that's not really a political activity.
And well, I totally agree with you. Dr. Prinsley, thank you. Peter Prinsley, their MP, Labour MP for Bury St Edmunds, member of the Home Affairs Committee, a softly spoken man, a reasonable man, someone who is very different from a lot of politicians that we have. And I think that watching him in action at the Home Affairs Select Committee with his gentle but pointed questions is something that I will be doing when the next one of these hearings comes up. Some very talented people. We talk about politicians who, have no integrity, they're bad people, You look at Peter Prinsley, you look at Joni Reid, two Labour MPs on that committee, and I think they both have integrity. You may disagree. Councillor Richard Parkin is a city councillor in Birmingham for Sutton Redicap ward. Richard, what do you think about the fact that Craig Guilford has finally, thankfully, gone?
Firstly, Peter, good evening. I wanted to agree with your comments about the Home Affairs Select Committee and the guests you've just had on, because I think they've conducted themselves incredibly well. And the questions that they asked, they eventually managed to prize the information out of Craig Guilford, who seemed extremely reluctant to provide the answers to the questions he was asked.
It's often the really dull, often boring, methodical work of Parliament that doesn't get reported very much, that's actually not bad. And there are some good politicians in this. Richard, tell me what your thoughts are on Guilford going.
I'm glad he's gone. It's a disgrace that he wasn't sacked. As you pointed out, the Police and Crime Commissioner, Simon Foster, you described him as spineless. I described him as gutless. He should have made that decision immediately on the day when the Home Secretary lost all confidence in Craig Guilford. And you talk about honour and integrity. If the man had any honour or integrity, he would have resigned or be sacked on the day. The fact that he's retired now, for me, is just typical of the institutions that we have in this country, that this is brushed under the carpet. He leaves with his record intact, with a full pension and no accountability, no apology, no presence in the public media today. Simon Foster came out, read a statement, and that was it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. In his statement, he says that he's come to the conclusion that the political and media frenzy around myself and my position has become detrimental to all the great work undertaken by my officers. Do you think it was the political and media frenzy? I think we're both part of that in different ways, Richard, the political and media frenzy. Do you think that's the problem here?
Absolutely not. I mean, what we're talking about, the frenzy he refers to, is entirely self-inflicted, because he didn't he didn't tell he misled, in being polite, he misled the select committee, and he invited all this criticism upon himself because he's constantly failed to deliver the truth. The last one we heard was he relied on artificial intelligence to make up a game between West Ham United and Maccabi Tel Aviv that never
happened. Yeah, exactly.
So he can't blame the media. It's his own fault.
What's happening now, Richard? What should happen now? Because it's not just him. It's not just Craig Guilford. This is a chain of command here. He wasn't sitting there using AI. He wasn't asking Grok or Gemini for the information. There are a whole huge number of officers, including senior officers, involved with this. So what will you do? What should the political system do now to get the answers that we deserve in all of this?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the report is still to be published from the Select Committee.
That's right, yeah.
So I think we need to wait until that comes out. The Select Committee have been very thorough in their investigations, and I'm sure that there's going to be a whole series of details coming out of that, which will be used to pursue this further if anything needs to happen. I think the key thing is that everybody responsible behind this needs to be held accountable. The West Midlands Police, there's been an enormous amount of trust and confidence lost amongst members of the public, and we need to regain that trust and confidence. And to do so, we need to make sure that it's run by people that we have faith in, and hopefully this will root out anybody else who's been involved in this and hold them to account.
Richard, thank you. That's Richard Parkin there, Councillor Richard Parkin from Birmingham City Council. Lots to discuss on all of this. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Dawn in Chelmsford says, I am glad the police and crime commissioners are being scrapped. We now need a proper system that reviews the performance of chief constables. And Timothy Dolan from Barnsley in South Yorkshire says, great show as usual. Craig Guilford being allowed to retire is a disgrace. However, politicians can hardly criticise. They rarely sack their own MPs and routinely allow them to stand down on their own terms with no consequences when they have done wrong, says Timothy. Well, thank you for all your messages. Lots more calls to come. We're also going to talk about net zero slowing growth. That's a warning from the Bank of England, no less. Lots to discuss on that. We'll also find out what's in the Sun tomorrow with John Lucas and have lots of your calls, text, tweets and voice notes. You want to get your voice on the air between now and 7 o'clock. It's 0344 499 1000. It's been a pleasure doing Drive this week. I'm going to be doing it next week as well, every day next week, Monday to Friday, 4 till 7. So you can join me for that. In the meantime, stay tuned. Lots to come between now and 7. Stay with us here on Talk Drive.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Just been looking at some of the messages that people have been sending on Twitter, and thank you for all of them. Let me read out a few of them. A1 Driver says, Simon Foster, the Police and Crime Commissioner, needs to answer the question. If a police constable knew false evidence was used to support a false narrative and then lied to him when questioned, would he sack that police constable? It's also a disgrace that a senior civil servant can simply resign to avoid investigation. Phil Helena says, Peter, should we not be asking why Craig Guilford did what he did? Was he personally anti-Semitic, afraid of the Islamic community, or even bullied by them? What caused him to go to such lengths? We need to know and to make sure this doesn't happen again. Graham Collins says, what on earth is Ayub Khan thinking? He clearly believes his own rhetoric and exists in some parallel universe. What buffoons voted for this revolting man who's allowed to sit and peddle his extreme views and sit in our parliament? Well, Ayub Khan has been giving some interviews this evening. We've asked him, and he has so far not come back to us. I would very much like to interview Ayub Khan, especially when he says that today an honourable man of integrity has been ruthlessly scapegoated. I would love to know what evidence he has for that. Ayub Khan, of course, is the independent MP for Birmingham Perry Bar. Lots to talk about that between now and 7. In the meantime, I want to talk about net zero, slowing growth. This is a warning from no less than Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England governor. He says net zero policies are slowing the global economy. By the way, I don't know if you know this, the Climate Change Commission estimates reaching net zero by 2050 will involve a net cost of £4 billion a year. So that's about £100 billion to get to net zero. Some say it's an artificial deadline. I think it's arbitrary. I agree with that. He said headwinds, Mr. Bailey said, headwinds facing the world economy included climate-related economic shocks and the consequences of the policies chosen to tackle these shocks. The cost of switching to electricity and levies and fossil fuels have been blamed for the UK's extraordinary high energy prices and the shutdown of heavy industry. Very, very interesting that the head of the Bank of England has chosen to make this these comments and this intervention now. Let's speak to Maurice Cousins, who's campaign director at Net Zero Watch. Maurice, what do you make of this?
Good evening,
Good
Peter.
evening.
Well, yes, I mean, this is obviously it's encouraging to hear a senior figure like Andrew Bailey orienting towards reality like this, economic reality. You know, for many of us on my side, you know, we have been warning about the costs of green policies and how they have a drag anchor effect on our economy and how they choke off particularly the supply side. Many of the processes and technologies that are involved to deliver net zero are inefficient and carry huge costs associated with them, and that's pretty much why the Bank of England governor is warning that it's slowing down growth. And we've had nearly 2 decades of this stuff now, and the effects can be seen everywhere from your household bills to the impact on our politics. It's destabilising everything.
Do you think the government is going to listen to him? Do you think they're going to say, actually, hold on a second, maybe this isn't working? We've got a senior economist. Some people say that he is good, some people say that he's bad, but he's warning about this. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to say these things, yet he's chosen to. He's chosen to shine a light on this.
Yeah, I mean, one would hope that they would. I mean, obviously, the main impediment from them actually acting on his advice is the Climate Change Act. I mean, we have a statutory target that is in place. I mean, you're a former special advisor, Peter. You know that when you're in government, that civil servants and ministers can't do anything which is unlawful.
Yeah, if it's statutory, you've got to do it.
You've got to do it, and so long as it remains in place, you can have ministers and advisors behaving like commentators behind the scenes and sort of saying, "Oh, why are we doing this? It's mad." But there's nothing you could do about it. You've got to do it because it's in law. So, I mean, one would hope that they would listen to him, and you know, the chorus now is growing all the time. You know, we're hearing all sorts of respected figures coming out and saying that the status quo is unsustainable. Obviously, there's the geopolitical context as well, which is very worrying. And if we are going to rearm, we're going to need to have to recarbonize our economy in order to be able to get heavy industry going again, so that we can meet our military needs.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and I do wonder whether you think, I know you're not political, but presumably a Reform UK government would attempt to repeal that act, that statutory duty, because it doesn't think that net zero is the way to go for this country. So in theory, if they win, you could get your wish.
Yes, well, fortunately, both the Conservatives and Reform have committed to that, and Claire Coutinho and Kemi Badenoch have said that if they were elected, they would repeal the Climate Change Act, and Reform, with both Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, they've said the same. I think both parties now, when you top them up, they come in at close to 54% in the polls. So we are looking at potentially, if there was a general election tomorrow, some combination of a Tory Reform.
Depends which poll you look at, but I can certainly see your point. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the longer term. For the meantime, Maurice, listen, thank you. That's Maurice Cousins there, campaign director at Net Zero Watch, joining us this evening. Lots of people getting in touch about West Midlands police, including Steve in Bromsgrove. He says the whole top tier of West Midlands police needs to be removed. They would all have been involved in the thinking and discussions. The Chief Constable did not make these decisions all on his own. Appointing the deputy is therefore a complete joke. Well, I don't know if the deputy was involved with that. There was an assistant Chief Constable who certainly gave evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee, and there's no suggestion that acting Chief Constable Green has a case to answer there, but I do think there are many other people who do. Let's speak to Anne-Marie in Lanarkshire and Craig Guilford. Anne-Marie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say that the Equalities Police and Crime Commissioner that spoke really should stand down, because he doesn't understand what was wrong here. I mean, that's a simple case.
There doesn't seem to be an acknowledgement of that, does there? There doesn't seem to be an acknowledgement that actually this is something that was wrong and shouldn't have happened.
There was no apology to the Jewish community.
Yep, correct. Or from Craig Guilford. He blames the political and media frenzy around myself and my position. It's the politicians and the media. They're the ones to blame, not him for lying.
Absolutely. Well, he gave him a glowing reference, didn't he? I mean, he can step into any job. But the Shabir Mahmood, she already knew 8 days before, but she lied about that. Now, if you're lying, you're covering something up.
I don't think she lied necessarily. She just didn't bring it to Parliament and didn't intervene when she should have. The government said they're going to sort this out. They didn't. What should happen now, Anne-Marie?
Well, I think that obviously the Equalities Police and Crime Commissioner should step down, because he doesn't understand what's going wrong here. For a start, I think the Home Secretary has to be held to account too. She lied about she knew 8 days before. She lied. Lies just seem to...
I don't know if she lied necessarily. She knew about it. She didn't take action on it, and she should have. I mean, a few days ago, she said that Craig Guilford didn't have her confidence, and that probably led to him going finally. That was the final nail in the coffin of his career, I would imagine, Anne-Marie.
Agree, absolutely. But this is a crime against the Jewish community. Their human rights were denied here.
I totally agree, Anne-Marie.
This is a big thing, and we know that one of the local mosques actually gave him his job. I mean, that can't stand.
Yeah, they were on the interview panel, and I do find that utterly bizarre. Anne-Marie, listen, thank you for your call there and for your thoughts. Matthew in Warrington will speak to you now. Matthew, your thoughts. You're very welcome to the programme.
Hello, nice to talk to you again.
You too, Matthew.
I think it's scandalous. I think it's absolutely scandalous. They should be taken into special measures, the West Midlands Constabulary, and they should have a clean break right through from top to bottom. And when you've got an MP who's just blatantly lying, and the local MP is just talking utter...
I don't know which planet he is on here. I mean, he may honestly believe what he's saying, but he's saying today, this is the local MP, Ayub Khan, the independent MP, today an honourable man of integrity has been ruthlessly scapegoated, publicly maligned and discarded in favour of appeasing hooligans and the very violence his actions prevented. I mean, what planet is he on, Matthew?
I don't know. I would like a pint of whatever he's been drinking, because obviously he's deluded. But the Birmingham Council, the bankrupt, they've not been able to empty the bins for over 2 years.
Yeah.
It says a whole lot for the whole establishment. It seems to have just gone completely downhill. The second city, We can't go and watch a football match. A Jewish person can't go walk down the street. A white person can't go into certain no-go areas. The police are corrupt. They're in the pocket of the local Imrans. You know, they're picking and choosing who they want, and then the local MP, and then the Prime Minister should have stepped in and said, "Hang on a minute. I'm putting you in special measures here," and it scares you. If that's happening in Birmingham, what's happening in other areas?
I think that's a very, very good point, and we know the details of this, Matthew, only because of we have Craig Guilford talking about the political and media frenzy. I'm going to stand up for the media, and do you know what? This is going to be unpopular, but I'm going to stand up for the politicians as well. This was good journalism from people like Gabriel Pogrund and others at the Sunday Times. It was good political questions from elected representatives like Joni Reid, like Peter Prinsley, who we've just spoken to, like Dame Karen Bradley. They did their job here, I think, Matthew. We can criticise them for lots and lots of different things, but they did their job and they exposed what was going on here.
Absolutely, and it's scandalous, and heads should have rolled for it, and 10, 15 years ago it would have, but now the people seem to think, oh, we'll just ride it out. It's like if our Prime Minister is letting his staff get away, his own staff get away with it, it starts from the top and it rolls downwards, so then everyone else is going to be doing it. They're all corrupt.
Well, Matthew, thanks.
We got 3 more years of this.
Matthew, thanks very much for your thoughts there. That's Matthew in Warrington. Lots to discuss in all of that. And if you want to talk about it between now and 7 o'clock, it's 0344 499 1000. We'll speak to one of the Sun's news desk top bods. John Lucas will be here. Does he have my Easter egg with him? We'll find out in a few minutes. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much for your company this evening. In the next 25 minutes, of course, we're going to talk about Craig Guilford and his, retirement now, that shameful episode, the cowardly Craig Guilford and the spineless Simon Foster. Lots of people want to get in on that. If you're one of them, 0344 499 1000. No doubt it'll be covered in the Sun tomorrow. But let's talk about some of their other stories with John Lucas, the night news editor. Hi, John, good to see you again. You all right?
Evening. Yep, all good, yeah.
We've had Will Barker the last couple of days, so, it's good to see you back.
Another bald man. Yep, all bald-headed men down there.
Well, listen, I mean, maybe you're just tearing your hair out with all the difficult editorial decisions you've got to make such a great paper.
Absolutely.
Tell us about one of the big stories tomorrow, a troubled teen who planned to carry out a Southport-style attack.
Yeah. Well, you're right, it's going to be a bumper paper tomorrow, actually. I think front page is going to be this big crime exclusive, which I can't talk about. And obviously we're talking about Craig Guilford and all the rest of it. But one of the other big stories today is this teenage boy, so he's an 18-year-old lad called Mackenzie Morgan, and he has been in court today where we've heard that he was inspired by the Southport attack carried out by Axel Rudakabana. As we remember, that absolutely awful crime. And this young lad wanted to carry out something similar. So he had obtained the Al-Qaeda instruction manual exactly the same as Rudy Cabana had. He'd scouted out the school, his local school, and he'd bought knives from Amazon. He was planning to develop ricin, as Rudy Cabana had done. And he also, the most dramatic aspect of his plot was that he wanted to launch a bomb attack at the Oasis homecoming gig, the Oasis reunion gig in Cardiff on July 4th last year. Now, he never got as far as actually getting in a position to carry out these plots, but what he was prosecuted for, in essence, was simply the possession of this manual, because, as you remember with Rudy Cabana, the law doesn't exist to prosecute these sorts of crimes under terrorism legislation, because there's no political aspect to it.
Okay.
It is simply that these young people are online being radicalised in a way that people can't really see.
Yes.
And in a way that you can't predict, because it's not about politics. It is about this very strange sort of ideology that's growing up in these forums, about just simply wanting to commit harm and commit mass casualty attacks.
Okay.
So we know that Labour, the government, have talked about changing the law to tackle these kind of offenders, and it all sort of plays into this idea that the government are going to restrict social media for under 16s. And Starmer said today, not in relation necessarily to this case, but he said that he's open to looking into this a bit more, the Australian style banning orders. So it's all very disturbing stuff, and we are seeing more and more of these cases of teenage boys, you know, the vast majority of them, looking to carry out these sort of attacks, and it's very, very disturbing, certainly, and we'll read all about that in the Sun tomorrow.
Just tell us about another story. This is about Bob Monkhouse, the family favourite comedian. Of course, he died a few years ago, and the trigger warning on one of his programmes on ITVX. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's the latest thing. Look, the TV bosses, the theatre bosses, they all seem to have decided that we can't decide for ourselves what's appropriate to watch.
Macbeth contains murder.
Exactly. Midsummer Murders contains, as you say, murder.
Yes.
The clues in the name. Bob Monkhouse, treasured...
National treasure.
Wonderful comedian. And ITVX have just recently put on his classic An Audience With 1994 special. But they're warning, and this is a warning, that it contains classic adult British humour which reflects the language and attitudes of the time. And they're saying to viewers, turn on your parental controls.
What's the most offensive thing Bob Monkhouse actually said? I mean, was he slagging off his mother-in-law again, or what?
I think there's a few mother-in-law jokes.
Yes. I mean, he was known for those. They were generally very good.
Exactly. I mean, in this special, he does take a swipe at the mother-in-law and the wife, and even Jeremy Beadle, which you know, may he rest in peace. But at the time, I think lots of people.
Well, he was quite a sort of hate
take
figure.
a swipe at, but we've taken the opportunity to sort of list some of Bob's classic jokes.
Go for it.
In the paper.
Go for it. Let's see if you have the same comic timing as Bob Monkhouse.
I don't think I can do it like him, but he's got. They laughed when I said I wanted to be a comedian. Well, no,
they're not laughing now.
Personally, I don't think there's any intelligent life on other planets. Why should any other planets be different to this one?
Very good.
The old classic, I'd like to die like my old dad, peacefully in his sleep, not screaming like his passengers on his bus. This one, there's a few mother-in-law ones in there. I'm not sure I'll do those.
Maybe leave them for the meantime. I don't know. Is there one you could tell? Is there a mother-in-law joke you could tell? Is there one of them you have in front of you?
Well, he said, my wife said to me, can my mother come down for the weekend? And I said, why? And she said, well, she's been up on the roof for 2 weeks already.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a reasonable joke. That's a reasonable joke. Yeah. Speaking of marriages, speaking of relationships, the cure from a broken heart is unfollowing your ex on social media. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, a scientific study has gone into this to say...
It must be true.
It must be true. If you've just broken up with someone, don't keep stalking them on social media.
Yes.
Leave them alone. Don't look at the pictures, but... half of us can't actually bring ourselves to do that.
Yeah.
So people are breaking up, and they are prolonging the pain and the agony of these breakups because they keep looking at the pictures, They keep following their Instagram and seeing all this. So this was a study that followed 762 people who kept tabs on their former lovers. 65% said they remained friends with the people they broke up with, and only 20% said that they would completely cut ties. And this is a study from Canada, the McMaster University in Canada, and it's causing distress. So, yeah.
John, as the Jason Statham of the Sun news desk, as you were once described by a member of your gay fan base who's known to me, you're probably more of a heartbreaker than someone who gets dumped. But in your experience, have you sort of followed an ex online and seen what they're up to?
Oh, I've been dumped plenty of times.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, yeah. It's best not to. Isn't
Do you know
it?
what?
It's best to keep away from it because
it wasn't an ex, but it was a friend, quite a close friend actually. He cancelled me. I got cancelled, and I followed this person on social media, and then I decided my New Year's resolution was not to look at this person's social media, and for the last 16 days I have not, and it has been a really good New Year's resolution.
And now you've said that, you're going to be tempted after this.
No, I'm going to really try not to.
Listen to this scientific advice. Don't do it. It's going to prolong your agony.
We don't want that. Speaking of prolonging agony, where's my Easter egg? Where's my Easter egg, John?
I'm not going to say I thought you might have forgotten about the egg.
No, I never forget. I never forget.
There's some knocking around down there. We'll make sure we get one up.
Okay. Well, I'm doing drive all next week, so maybe you could bring one up from the Sun newsroom. John Lucas, night news editor at the Sun. Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. And of course, there are lots of people who want to make their points clear on Craig Guilford. We'll make sure we get as many people on between now and 7 o'clock. And of course, Kevin O'Sullivan will be here in this studio between 7 and 9, and then what just happened between 9 and 10. But plenty of calls before then. We might even have a chat with Kevin too. Stay with us.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch. Really good one from Faye in Essex, who says Craig Guilford has ruined it for any credible and honest officers serving the West Midlands Police. I do feel sorry for them. There are thousands of officers in the West Midlands Police. There will be many of them, maybe some of them listening now, or their families listening now, or people who've served that excellent police force over the years. And we know that Craig Guilford has just done terrible things to the reputation of the force. There are other senior officers as well. There are some good people, I'm sure, at many levels in that police force. Yet Craig Guilford, he was the figurehead, and he's now retired and been allowed to retire. It is totally disgraceful. Faye, thank you for that. Rob says, where on earth is our weak and pathetic Prime Minister regarding this? Not a word, because he doesn't want to upset his Muslim voters. Just what on earth has this country become? The police chief has committed gross misconduct in high office and he's allowed to gracefully retire. What an abhorrent individual, says Rob. Well, in fairness, the Home Secretary has put something out, but yeah, we haven't heard from the Prime Minister on that. That's a perfectly reasonable point. I listened to an interview with the Gaza Independent Birmingham MP Ayub Khan, says this person on Times Radio, just before turning into your show, Times Radio also owned by this company, talking about the Craig Guilford case. The falsity was enough to make my blood boil. I would love to interview Ayub Khan. The interview is, the opportunity to be interviewed by me is open, Mr. Khan. If you want to come on at any time, any time slot that you like between 4 and 7, Monday to Friday next week, Ayub Khan, the offer is open to you. And the producers behind the scenes are going to make that offer to him as well. If they'll do that, Ryan's nodding his head. We will email and contact and ring his office and say, look, you can come on anytime you like, any slot. We will accommodate you next week, anytime, Monday to Friday between 4 and 7. That's when I'm doing Drive, and that's when I'd like to speak to Mr. Khan and find out why he thinks it's appropriate to say this is a witch hunt. Joan's in Sunderland and has some views on Craig Guilford. Tell us your thoughts, Joan. You're very welcome to the programme, and thanks very much for giving us a call.
Thanks for taking this call. I'm absolutely furious that this Craig, whatever his name is,
Guilford, yeah,
has been allowed to retire. He should have been sacked, and he should also face charges of gross misconduct in public office. I am fed up with people like this being allowed to walk away with shed loads of money. It's an absolute disgrace.
What do you think it says about our society, Joan, that had that been a constable, a bobby on the beat, who'd done even a little bit of that, he or she would have been suspended, but the chief constable gets to retire?
No, they'd have been out the door. They would have been suspended. They would have lost their job. They would have walked away with nothing. And that's what gets me mad about people like this. Yeah. And I would like to agree with you about these politicians. We've actually got some who have actually done the job they were paid to do, to look at this and realise there's a bad smell.
Yeah.
They got that bloke back not once, but twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as I say, these people who deny there's no two-tier policing, that went on openly, that everyone could see and listen, and two-tier policing has to end. There's just no room for that at all. That MP, the independent one, he's an absolute disgrace.
Ayub Khan, yeah. Joan, listen, I just going to say I agree with everything you're saying, Joan.
Well, I saw him when he was given an interview when he was absolutely gloating that this is being called off for safety reasons.
Yeah.
We all knew it wasn't for safety reasons. But can I also say thank you to you and to Talk for the programmes you put on, because we get the truth.
Well, thank you, Joan. That means a lot, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. And thanks for your call, Joan. You speak a lot of common sense there, and thanks for the kind words, particularly at the end there. Andy in Merseyside is on the line. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Andy, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Always enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Just a few points, really. Just to add that the police commissioner, the crime commissioner, I should say.
Yes,
Mr. Foster,
Simon Foster, yeah.
Simon Foster. We know that he's an ex-Corbynite disciple, isn't he?
Yes, he is, yeah.
And we all know what Mr. Corbyn's attitude towards the Jewish community is. So, and that's with nothing really to add in respect to Foster. In respect to the chief constable...
I don't know about Simon Foster's particular views on the Jewish community, but I absolutely know about Jeremy Corbyn's views on the Jewish community, and I absolutely agree with you on Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand that we don't know specifically what Mr. Foster's attitude towards the Jewish community is, but we certainly seem
I think it's a reasonable point to make in this context, certainly, Andy. Yeah,
exactly. And as far as the West Midlands police attitude towards the Jewish community, well, we've seen that there. What I find really strange is how the natural thing would be for the Home Secretary to actually she can't sack the police crime commissioner, but she can certainly put some pressure on him by basically saying that, asking him to explain himself.
She could also say that she has no confidence in him.
Yeah.
That's a possible thing to do, and it's tricky for them because he's Labour and she's on a different part of the Labour Party. She's on a different wing of the Labour Party than him. She believes different things to him, but I mean, she could say, "I'm looking into this. We're abolishing them." They know the police and crime commissioners are going to be abolished. I think it's really, really interesting, the role of the Home Secretary here, because there's a lot more that she can do. Maybe not just with her actions just yet, but certainly with her words.
Exactly. The issue with regard to her is that she can put pressure. She can put pressure on the Chief Constable. She can put pressure on the crime commissioner. But the other issue that I think is really important is this Chief Constable. When a Chief Constable is appointed to a police force area, he'll get the people that he believes will supply his vision. Well, we've seen what his vision is now. So what I think we need really in the West Midlands is a complete root and branch removal of the upper tier.
I totally agree, and there's that Assistant Chief Constable as well who was similarly called back. This wasn't Craig Guilford acting alone. Just because he's gone doesn't mean this is solved. Andy, you speak a lot of common sense. Thanks for coming to the home of common sense to make your points, and thanks for your kind words as well. We'll speak again soon, I hope. That's Andy in Merseyside. I want to fit in Del in Romford as well. Del, you're welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Peter. This is great to be speaking to you. What I want to say is, very briefly, I was talking to an Israeli friend of mine, and he said that it's cost him money, this Craig Clifford, because of the arrangements that he made, leaving work, etc., plus other things, and a lot of talk there about suing him personally.
Well, was he planning to? Was your friend planning to? Was your friend planning to go to the match or something? Maybe booking accommodation or something like that?
He arranged time at work.
Yeah.
He lives just outside Tel Aviv.
Okay.
He arranged time and a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, everything costs money. You know, he lost work and he couldn't replace this. And there's a lot of talk about suing Craig Clifford personally.
Well, that would be very interesting. It would be very interesting to see how far that got, Del. Certainly. Listen, thank you for that point. Let's speak to Lenny in Ashford, who's on the line, 0344 499 1000. Lenny, go ahead.
Well, I've been talking to your researchers all week, and I knew that he would never, ever get the sack, because that wasn't a one-man exercise. That was a conspiracy with a lot of them in there. And they could not just sack the one. There would be more that would have to all be sacked together.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it clearly just wasn't him. There are clearly other people who were involved in this absolute shambles, cock-up conspiracy, willful lying, whatever you want to call it, Lenny. What do you think should happen now?
I think there should be an investigation into the conspiracy, and they should all face accountability.
Yeah. Lenny, very good points. Thank you for them. David's in London, and we'll talk about Robert Jenrick, the other big story today. David, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I didn't think I'd go on there. Just going to squeeze it in a positive. I'm absolutely delighted that Robert Jenrick has joined Reform, because, in my view, when they get rid of Kemi, he would have been a much more dangerous opponent for Reform than Kemi, I'm afraid. So I'm delighted he now can't be the leader of the Conservatives, can he?
Well, that's a very interesting point. So you would have feared him had he been for Reform UK's electoral prospects, presumably, had he been the leader of the Conservatives. Yeah.
And I think he would have been a very, very dangerous opponent. She's like a dog with no teeth, no problems at all. But I'm really delighted he's joined us, because he can't lead them now, can he? And can I make a quick comment on these police commissioners?
Yes, you can. Go ahead, David.
They're going in 18 months, aren't they? They're going in 18 months.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's right. The police and crime commissioners,
they're going. That one useless one you had on you, they're all useless. Waste of time, 70,000 a year. waste of money, waste of time, waste of effort. Less than 20% of people vote for him in most areas.
Well, it's hard to know what they actually are there for. I mean, surely when a blind man on a galloping horse can tell very, very easily that Craig Guilford should go, and he still doesn't sack him. He says, oh, we're going to have process and we're going to have an accountability panel on the 27th of this month. I mean, anybody could see that Craig Guilford in some way, whether he was going to retire, whether he was going to be sacked, whatever was going to happen, he was going to have to go, David.
Peter, I'm laughing at a blind man on a galloping horse.
You never heard that one?
No. I might use it next week.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Somewhere next week, I might have to do that at a conference. I might bring that one up.
I just want to ask you again, actually, on reform, if you don't mind, David. What do you think, Robert? Right. What do you think Robert Jenrick should actually do in reform? Should he be the Shadow Chancellor? Should he be their maybe Home Affairs guy? What would you like him to do now he's in Reform UK? Because you're a supporter of that party.
I'd put him in charge of immigration.
Okay.
End of. That's it. I mean, he had the guts, and I use the words carefully. A lot of people don't when they're earning a lot of money. When you're earning 140,000, he had the guts to step down because they wasn't doing what he wanted to do. To me, that's the sort. I'm glad we've got him.
Okay, David. Listen, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. That's David in London, and I think just to round all this up, there is so much going on politically. It's been a fascinating political week. It's a privilege, as it always is, to present Talk Drive. I'll be doing that next week between 4 and 7 every day, Monday to Friday, and I hope you join me for that. But it's fascinating to just see how quickly things can change. You've got two big beasts in our society. The former Housing Secretary, the former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, going from the Conservatives to Reform UK. No one really could have predicted that. Maybe it was in the ether, he was thinking about it, he denied it